Good morning and welcome to the September 25th, 2024 meeting of the Natural Resources Board here in Plover, Wisconsin. This is one of our out of Madison meetings. We do this in the summer months, and it's very important to the board and to staff to bring our business out to the public in various parts of the state. So these meetings that are held out of Madison are intended to make the board process more accessible to the public. And it's also a very valuable learning experience for the board, because we take the opportunity, in this case yesterday, to meet with staff and to go out and take a field tour of some of the properties and some of the issues that are coming to the board later. And we learn an awful lot from that. We also get to meet many of our local conservation partners that are involved in these successes in these projects. So it's really a wonderful opportunity for the board to better understand the role of staff and the partnerships that they form and the work that's done at the local level. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance to our great nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll now call our hybrid meeting to order, in that we have people appearing and participating in person, and we also have some people that are participating in a virtual online appearance. I have a few reminders and introductory remarks before we go to the agenda items, so please bear with. please turn off any phones or other devices that might interrupt the meeting, and please minimize the background noise here in the meeting room. Our participants that are virtual and online, please make sure you're muted and your videos turned off until your item is announced. And everyone, just note there's sometimes a significant delay in the virtual meeting broadcast, and it's very easy to talk over one another. I have to remind myself every meeting of that, and inevitably I will stomp on somebody unintentionally. So just please be aware of that. Our Natural Resource Board meetings are also televised live via YouTube. So we welcome and thank all viewers that are joining us today. Records of our past meetings are available for review on the DNR website under Natural Resources Board Briefs of Action. Direct public involvement and open, transparent meetings are the foundation for how this board has operated for 50 years and for how we try to operate today. Our Natural Resource Board discussions and decision-making are transparent to all, and public testimony is very welcome at every regularly scheduled Natural Resource Board meeting. And we have a number of public appearances today. To ensure fair and equal time for all, please limit your public testimony to 3 minutes per speaker. We have a light system here, and when the yellow light here on the podium goes on, you have 30 seconds left to really draw your remarks to a conclusion and finish. For people that have difficulty, I guess, saying everything they want to say or convey to the board in that 3 minutes, we encourage people to also submit written materials or background materials that provide some of that detail that is difficult to squeeze into a short presentation. I want to thank Deputy Secretary Stephen Little and your leadership team for your support of the board, your commitment to enhance collaboration between the department, the board, and the citizens that we all serve. And thanks very much to our issue presenters, the Department Information Technology staff, Office of Communications, General Counsel, and all the support staff that make these meetings possible. I'd like to also mention that these out of Madison meetings are very important to the board, but they also come at a cost. There's a tremendous workload in transporting the board operation, all of the hardwired technology, and finding the bandwidth that's able to carry our meetings to the public. So it's an extra workload on staff, and I want to acknowledge that and thank everybody that gives that extra effort to make these meetings possible. I also want to individually recognize Katie Majeski. Katie's over here filling in for our full-time board liaison, Ashley Bistall. Ashley's on a family leave for a few months, and Katie and others are very ably filling in behind. For the public that wants to get to the board liaison position is important. It's your primary contact with the board, either by phone or by message or by email. And just continue to use the same number for Ashley and for the board liaison. Somebody else will answer, but you'll get your business taken care of. And Katie and all of the others that are filling in very much appreciate their extra help. I want to give special thanks. I mentioned that the board learns a lot when they're at these out of Madison meetings and the chance to go out in the field. Yesterday, we had an excellent field tour. I want to thank Joe Shane, the Secretary's director in this part of the state, Dave Rosenboom, the field integration leader, and Sue Snyder, who helped with all of the logistics, and Sue's sitting right over there. Put together a very informative day and a valuable day in the field. The board spent time with staff and partners out at the Mead Wildlife Area, taking a look at the infrastructure that is going to be an item for budget discussion in the future. We also went to the University of Stevens Point forestry program, and we heard about the LEAF program and some of the innovation work that the university is doing, in large part to deal with the tremendous changes in the pulp and fiber industry in the state of Wisconsin and the impacts on the use of fiber, which is one of the primary products from our woodlands. And they're looking for innovative new uses and efficiencies in that. It was just an exciting visit and a conversation at the university. And we ended up the day at a really important success story, not far from where we sit right now. We were at the Little Plover River that many years ago was dry one summer. We had a drought and we had some extensive irrigation going on, municipal well systems drawing on the groundwater, and it drew it down to a point where it dried up the Little Plover River. And it is a very valuable trout stream, and everybody recognized that, and they said, oh my gosh, we have got to work on this. And after years of collaboration, the local partnership has really done a tremendous job there. And we saw the Plover River, fishery staff were shocking brook trout out of it that were healthy, wonderful, and it's a very productive brook trout stream today. The message is that was accomplished by voluntary partnership amongst the local community, village of Plover, the farming community, adjacent landowners, a number of citizen groups, and individual citizens and department staff. And they have put the resources together and volunteered to take action that would help the Plover River, and the watershed has been significantly restored, and the river is in healthy and very good shape. They have plans to do more, so the work's not done. And we were emphasized strongly yesterday that a watershed restoration isn't a one-time deal. You don't fix it and walk away, but it's another part of Mother Nature that continues to evolve. And if you're going to maintain the health of that watershed, you've got to keep working on it. And they have a very strong partnership here to continue that work. It was a highlight of the tour yesterday, and I think very informative for everybody that was there. My congratulations to that local partnership. Lastly, I want to thank all the employees, citizen volunteers, and conservation partners of the Department of Natural Resources for your commitment and tireless work to protect and enhance our natural resources and to serve all citizens of our great state. With that, Katie, would you please call the roll? We have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is Secretary's remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I too want to echo the sentiments that Chair Smith discussed just briefly about the tour yesterday and the level of detail and level of effort that it requires on our staff to be able to present the tours and the communication and the outreach and the input that's so valuable to the board. So I would also like to thank Sue Schneider. I'd like to thank Jill Schoen. I'd like to thank Dave Roseboom, Carly Zimmerman, and Katie Majewski, as well as the staff from wildlife, staff from forestry, staff from fisheries, our IT staff, staff from PSRP. I'd like to thank the local government groups that were present yesterday on site, as well as the farming community, local government, the staff from Mead Wildlife Center, as well as the friends from Mead Wildlife Center for such a wonderful opportunity to be out in the Central Sands part of the state. So thank you very much, and back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. Next item is approval of the agenda for the September 25th meeting. I'd like to note that the original agenda that was posted to the public had been amended. So there are two changes on the current agenda, and I'll note those. One is moving item 2H to 4H to allow a presentation on that, on a donation. And the other amendment that was done to the original agenda was to post the Natural Resources Board social dinner. We got together last night to have dinner, strictly social, no business conducted, but it needs to be posted. So I just want to point out those changes and ask the board, are there any other changes, or Deputy Secretary Stephen Little, any other changes to the agenda? Robin.
Yeah, thank you. I would ask to have item 2B be moved to item 3 so we could have a brief discussion on that.
Okay. I'll reorder the agenda then and move item 2B to 3 for a brief discussion, as long as there's no objections from the board. And we'll include that in our motion to approve the agenda. Are there any other changes? Hearing none, looks like we need a motion to approve.
Move approval. This is Rob.
Okay, we got a motion to approve from Robin. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Deb. Any more discussion on the agenda? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries and we have an agenda. Thank you. Move on to item 2, the consent agenda. Item 2A, approval of the brief of action from August 14, 2024. Item 2B has been moved to item 3. 2C, request the board authorize a preliminary public hearing and comment period for the statement of scope for Board Order DG 0224 and conditionally approve the public hearing notice and notice of submittal of proposed rules to the Legislative Council Rules Clearinghouse for proposed rules providing technical corrections to Chapter NR 809 to clarify and correct the existing language and revise consumer confidence report requirements. Item 2D, request that the board authorize a preliminary public hearing and comment period for the statement of scope for Board Order WY-20-23 and conditionally approve the public hearing notice and notice of submittal of proposed rules to the Legislative Council Rules Clearinghouse for proposed rules repealing chapters NR 107 and 109 and creating chapter NR 107 related to aquatic plant management, manual removal and mechanical control regulations, and aquatic habitat protection and revision of chapter NR 193 related to surface water grants. Item 2E, acknowledgement of a donation. The Newport Wilderness Society donated a Polaris UTV valued at $20,750.28 to Newport State Park. This donation will be used to serve a variety of important maintenance roles at the property. Item 2F, acknowledgement of donation. The Newport Wilderness Society donated $27,000 to fund an LTE natural resource educator position. And item 2G, the Door County Historical Society donated replica historical buildings valued at $300,000. This donation will be used to construct a replica of the historic barn and summer kitchen for the benefit of visitors at Peninsula State Park. And item 2H has been moved to item 4H to enable a presentation by David Clutter from the Natural Resources Foundation. So with that, request a motion for the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
Got a motion to approve from Deb. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Patty. Any further discussion? All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. We have consent agendas approved. Item 3, discussion and possible action concerning items that have been removed from the consent agenda. So we will go back to item 2B, which is now item 3. Request the board authorize a preliminary public hearing and comment period for the statement of scope for Board Order DG-01-24 and conditionally approve the public hearing notice and notice of submittal of proposed rules to the Legislative Council Rules Clearinghouse for proposed rules affecting Chapter NR 809 related to drinking water standards for PFAS. Adam DeWeese, Public Water Supply Section Manager. Robin, you asked for the item. You have some comments.
Yeah. Hi, Adam. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Robert. Glad to be here.
I just wanted to, this is a really important topic for people throughout the state. And so I just wanted to make sure that that we understood. Can you explain a little bit how we are kind of a step ahead of things in this in respect to public water supplies.
Yeah.
because of the action that was taken in 2022. Can you just give a very brief synopsis of what that allowed us to do now?
Yeah, I'd be glad to, and thanks for that question. Yeah, Wisconsin is one of just a handful of states that is really well out ahead of this issue, the PFAS issue, and that we put in place state standards that were based on the old EPA, the federal hazard HAL, the health advisory level of 70 parts per trillion for combined PFOA and PFOS. And we put those standards in place in 2022, and the federal standards now in place didn't come into effect until this past spring. So yeah, we were a couple of years essentially ahead of the feds, and that puts us in really good position because we have already received sample results from the almost 2,000 public water systems that are affected by this rule. So we already have a pretty good understanding of who is going to be needing to perform corrective actions. And we've, based on the sample results, we think there are about 90 systems at this point that would be required to meet the federal standards, are above those standards now. And that is a mix. It's important to note that's a mix of non-community systems. So small businesses, small mom and pop restaurants, churches, those types of things, and then community systems. And then the community systems are actually not all municipal systems. A lot of those systems are actually smaller community systems as well. So, and then we've also had the opportunity to take advantage of federal money to help these systems that we know have levels that are going to be a concern when these federal MCLs would take effect in the state of Wisconsin. We're getting them money now so that they're actually, ahead of the curve there and can make their corrective actions before the force of this, the new federal standards become law.
Thank you. I give a lot of credit to the actions taken in 2022 because it really does make it so much faster for community systems to respond to these lower standards. But I also just wanted to point out, and I know, Adam, that you are the drinking water expert and not the groundwater expert. And I just wanted to make sure people understand that there's 800,000 private wells for which we still have no PFAS standards because the drinking water standards apply to municipal and regulated water supply, public water supply systems, but anybody on an individual well really does not have any established groundwater standard for protection. And I think we need to keep trying to do what we can to make sure that the state understands that difference and the importance of moving forward at giving us authority to make those rules. So that's all I wanted to say, and I just appreciate the work and the foresight that the department and staff had in doing what they did 2 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Adam. We have Adam up. Are there any other questions from the board? Hearing none, I think we need a motion to approve.
I'd move approval.
Robin moves approval. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Marcy. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. We'll move on to item 4, action items. Item 4A, request adoption of board order WW-06-22, proposed rules affecting chapters NR 320, 323, 326, 328, and 329 related to placing structures and crossings in navigable waterways. Kyle McLaughlin, Integrated Services Section Manager. Welcome, Kyle.
Good morning, Chair Smith and distinguished members of Natural Resources Board. Thanks for having me today. My name's Kyle McLaughlin, and I'm the Section Manager for Integration Services with Wisconsin DNR. I previously served as the Waterway Policy Program with the Waterways Program, and I'm here with you today in continuation of that capacity to seek the board's adoption of the draft rule proposed under scoping statement WW-06-22 pertaining to the regulation of structures placed in or over navigable waterways. The proposed rule eliminates redundancy, provides regulatory clarity, and increases decision-making efficiency through the consolidation of 5 existing administrative rules, which were last updated nearly 20 years ago. These 5 rules specify the regulatory review, activity design and placement requirements for commonly constructed waterway activities, including bridges and culverts, fish and wildlife habitat structures, piers, boat shelters, swim rafts, shoreline erosion control structures like riprap and biological shoreline erosion control, and miscellaneous structures, which include temporary waterway crossings for forestry activities, intake outfall structures, pilings, boat landings, and a number of other types of structures. The proposed rule includes updates to existing exemption, installation, design, and location requirements for piers, wharves, seasonal boat shelters, culvert replacements, habitat structures, and rock riprap shore protection, and also includes a few new exemptions for certain fish habitat structures, temporary structures like scientific monitoring devices and certain recreational structures, as well as temporary waterway crossings for forest management activities. Excuse me. The proposed rule also incorporates standards for information which may be required to evaluate a project's public interest impacts through an individual permit application and identifies potential circumstances which may require professional engineering, design, or modeling for certain types of shoreline erosion control structures and solid piers proposed to be placed on Great Lakes or outlying waters. The proposed rule also incorporates changes made by the legislature related to individual permit allowances for certain types of structures, including piers, wharves, and boat shelters, as well as aligns DNR standards for issuing statewide general permits consistent with statutory standards. The department began working on this rulemaking effort in the fall of 2022 and convened a large technical advisory committee representative of broad interests on a near monthly basis through the latter part of 22 and throughout 2023 to help inform this effort. Technical advisory committee members include stakeholders representing private riparian interests, environmental advocacy interests, transportation interests, county, town, and municipal interests, counterpart conservation agency interests, coastal management interests, and department technical experts across a number of different programs, including fisheries, water quality, and environmental analysis. Earlier this spring, the economic impact analysis was public noticed and later finalized. And in July, the department provided notice of the draft rule and hosted 2 virtual public informational hearings, accepting public comments through August 1st. The informational hearings were held on July 30th and 31st, 2024, and in total, 10 people participated in the hearings, with 2 providing verbal testimony. During the public comment period, the department received written comments from 7 people. Comments received were generally in support of the rulemaking effort and provided both technical recommendations and policy implementation suggestions. A summary and response to comments is included in your briefing package. In addition to the public comments received, staff also received comments from the Legislative Council Rules Clearinghouse. All comments received from the public and the Legislative Council Rules Clearinghouse were carefully evaluated, and staff worked to incorporate much of the feedback into the draft rule, while maintaining overall policy objectives. We strongly believe that the outcome of these efforts is a rule that supports a well-balanced approach to meet the DNR's public trust responsibilities while ensuring consistency with legislative statutory changes. The rule provides clarity to regulated stakeholders for projects not requiring permits and serves to clearly identify the information which may be necessary for the department staff to efficiently evaluate different project proposals, and clearly identifies how such information is utilized during the public interest review to inform the department's decision-making process. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions of Kyle specific to his presentation? I think we'll hold off discussion. We have one speaker signed up for this one. I suggest we take that first and then go to board discussion. Thank you,
Thank you.
Kyle. Hang in there. We'll be back to you soon.
Sounds good.
We have one public speaker, Melissa Johnson, Wisconsin Green Fire. Melissa, welcome.
Good morning, and thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to the board, Mr. Chair, Deputy Secretary, to provide these comments on the new draft NR 320. I am the Executive Director of Wisconsin's Green Fire, a conservation nonprofit focused on advancing science-based, knowledge-driven natural resources and environmental policy. I am here today representing the 800+ members of our organization and the subject matter experts and researchers, two of whom wrote this. I'm simply the messenger, and they were on the Technical Advisory Committee, Nancy Larson and Mel Volbrick. Wisconsin Green Fire served on the Technical Advisory Committee on the development of these rules and provided written comments on the drafts in 2023 and most lately during the public comment period ending August 1st, 2024. Our members have experience with the science of habitat protection, in addition to experience with the technical and legal aspects of the department's waterway and wetland program. The rules related to placement of structures and crossings in waterways are extremely important for aquatic habitat and the superb fishing and waterfowl hunting, bird and wildlife watching on our lakes and streams that Wisconsinites have long enjoyed and hopefully will long enjoy well into the future. As we move into the future where fish and wildlife survival, especially in the face of more frequent extreme weather, depends on the ability to find suitable habitat, these rules become even more important. These rules are critical in carrying out public trust obligations to the citizens of Wisconsin. The major thrust of our comments on the draft rule is that objective, science-based criteria for decision-making and clear standards are needed to assist staff and provide predictability for the regulated community. Although we appreciate that many of our comments were addressed, we remain concerned about several provisions. We list just a few examples of the highest impact and most frequent occurrences. Number one, inconsistent use of engineering plans for structures placed on Great Lakes and outlying waters in all solid piers. Wisconsin Green Fire applauds the department for great steps forward, but we support language that requires, let me underscore that, requires engineering or modeling to be submitted in an individual permit application with off-ramps for situations in which it is not needed. The rule language states engineering may be required. We understand some commenters stated the language may be, and I quote, creates a presumption that engineering or modeling will be required. Structures in these high energy waters can have a major impact to habitat and surrounding properties. In light of changing water levels and erosion in the Great Lakes and outlying waters, a consistent science-based approach is important. Wisconsin Green Fire hopes that Wisconsin will consider becoming as protective of its Great Lakes shore as Ohio, which requires plans and specification for Lake Erie projects to be prepared by a professional engineer since 1994. Number two, no apparent dimensional standards for piers, wharves, and swim rafts in areas of special natural resource interest. As the rule is written, piers, wharves, and swim rafts can be placed without a permit in areas of special natural resource interest, including wild rice waters. By simply meeting the general standard, the pier, and I quote, the pier or wharf does not interfere with the public rights in navigable waters. And then along with a few other more readily discernible standards, Wisconsin Green Fire urges DNR to, at a minimum, consistently apply the dimensional standards in Wisconsin statute 30.12 to exempt structures in most sensitive waters, in our most sensitive waters. Number 3, unspecified alternative methods to justify seawall, and I've got to hurry, seawalls and riprats at the site of low erosion. The rule language allowing alternative methods to justify seawalls or riprats at site with low erosive energy levels, with no requirement that the method be science-based or apply relevant standards. Wisconsin Green Fire urges that methods be limited to those in the previous rule developed in conjunction with UW Civil Engineering and experts, unless scientific information and performance testing can be supported. And I'll quickly close. Wisconsin Green Fire is surprised that such a complex, important rule is coming before the board less than 60 days after the close of public comment, especially without further communication back to the Technical Advisory Committee. However, we also appreciate the 30-month time frame for submission of the final rule to the legislature expires in December. In general, we support this with those caveats, and Wisconsin Green Fire and our experts remain available as always to assist the DNR and the state of Wisconsin.
Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome.
Are there questions from the board? I have one.
Sure.
You mentioned you or others that you're speaking for participated in the advisory committee process. Were these specific concerns discussed as part of that process, and how were they treated? I guess, how were they handled?
Yeah. It is my understanding that they were. It is my understanding that we also submitted that in comments in early August. It is my understanding the 2 members of the Technical Advisory Committee, Nancy Larson and Mel Volbruck, feel they didn't see the final. The Technical Advisory did not see the final, and they are not aware that any of those concerns were addressed other than response back duly noted. So. Does that answer your question, sir?
Partially. I guess I'm interested in knowing if these concerns are specific to 1 or 2 individuals and input, or if there was a wider recognition and discussion of that as part of the Technical Advisory Committee from your perspective.
Yeah, I cannot speak to that since I was not there, and it was well before my time with Wisconsin's Green Fire. There may be others who were and can address that, and I don't want to speak out of place
Okay.
and give false
I'll
information.
carry that on to Kyle and we
Yeah,
get a chance.
yeah.
Other questions of Melissa? Okay, thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, sir.
Kyle, you want to return to the podium? Okay, any other questions of Kyle? Then maybe we can start with the one I posed for Melissa. What's your perspective on the issues that are raised, and how were they handled on the technical advisory process?
Sure. So as was pointed out during our presentation, we had a broad stakeholder group that represented our technical advisory committee, and we carefully considered all of the feedback, some of which was in conflict with one another for certain points of this policy-making effort. And so it was the department's responsibility to balance all of the feedback received in order to come up with our final draft rule, which is in front of us today. So specifically to the point of coastal engineering requirements, the discussion of shall include or may include was carefully contemplated by department staff and the technical advisory committee. I'll offer that the codification of those engineering, the possibility of this DNR requiring engineering is a continuation of existing state policy established through guidance. And so it's the intention of the department that that guidance is able to be implemented more consistently by inclusion in the rule, identifying clearly the types of scenarios that may warrant engineering. But in terms of the why not shall, the department remains, is needing flexibility in making those determinations as a result of experiences with coastal projects, recognizing that not all coastal projects require engineering, and the the requirement to include it for all specific sites may put strong burden on landowners where experience shows it may not have been required. And we'd received specific feedback to that end from certain members of our technical advisory committee as well.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Robin?
So just to follow up on that, so can you clarify the impact to department staff workload by having to review these and then make that determination for all projects rather than having them come in with that information already there? Like, how does that, doesn't it take more staff time to assess each project to determine if they should apply rather than just having that be put in? And do you have that capacity?
Sure. So there's a specific set of identified circumstances where requiring engineering is likely in the dynamic systems. And so the staff's ability to identify when those circumstances are applied for is, I would say, clear based on how the rule is written. In addition, many applicants, in these types of systems provide engineering in their own volition, if you will, without it having been required by the department. So it's been our experience that many applicants are already providing this information, and this serves to further clarify when we might require it for higher risk scenarios that have been identified.
Other questions, comments?
Are we done with that portion? Because then I have.
I'm not sure.
I
Are we?
have a different section. It's a big rule.
I would just ask one question of Kyle. I might ask the same of Melissa. It seems to me this is a discussion about how to word the requirement for engineering, whether it's discretionary or mandatory, but in both cases having off ramps or exceptions to that, recognizing it's not needed in all cases. It's just a matter of what kind of filter you use to make that decision. The current system that we have is more discretionary from what I understand. Melissa's suggesting we have one that would be mandatory with some off ramps for people that really don't need it. What's our experience with the present system? Do we have examples of where the lack of an upfront mandatory requirement of engineering has caused problems or left the door open to have some problems with construction of structures? Or has the system worked clearly? And I would ask the same of Melissa, are we trying to solve a problem here, or are we just debating over how to frame the language and how to pose the decision-making structure?
Sure. I think we've seen circumstances where the lack of a thoughtful design, engineering, or modeling has caused exacerbated public interest problems, whether it's disruption of flows along a shoreline leading to increased erosion on neighboring property owners, or deposition of littoral drift in areas where it may be destructive to existing habitat. And so for those reasons, we recognize the need in certain scenarios that are identified as higher risk types of scenarios where these practices could have the potential to cause more problems than they're intended to solve, to require that engineering to inform how that structure will perform, long term. So that's been our experience based on having seen poorly designed structures not perform in the manner intended and causing problems.
Which would argue for a higher priority and maybe a more expansive requirement of engineering on these structures, which is what I hear from Melissa, making them mandatory and then exempting or off-ramping some. Are there instances where the department's use of, I guess, discretion or a flexible review has resulted in lack of engineering on projects where we should have had it? And is there a fix here where, I mean, we're kind of trying to set up a system that's going to work well and have engineering where we need it and not require it where we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a matter of how you put the wording into the rule for
Yep.
that. Is there a fix on this discretionary use of, by the department, of reviewing it for engineering and saying yes or no and making a judgment? Is that part of the area that needs to be worked on to get engineering where we need it and not require it where we don't?
I think that's, that would be a possible solution, is carefully considering what those off-ramps look
Mhm.
like. The proposal that we have identifies those scenarios where engineering is likely to be required, but there are also circumstances in those higher risk scenarios where we've seen structures similarly designed perform sufficiently. And so therefore, maintaining the flexibility to not require it in those circumstances, for example, where there's a similarly designed structure nearby a location that is maybe one of those high risk areas, but is performing sufficiently, would be a reason to not require engineering in that circumstance. So to that end, it's the department's preference to maintain flexibility and the ability to require it where we see strong public interest risk that can be managed through the requiring of engineering.
So
Okay.
that does generate another question, if I may.
Okay, Marcy, go ahead.
So a lot of these, when you gave those examples, I'm thinking of projects that the state has kind of inherited, where there's structures that need replacement or other things, and often there's federal grant funding involved. Is there an umbrella on the federal level when there's funding involved for replacement of a structure that would require engineering standards?
I'm not aware of those types of federal requirements.
Okay.
No, but we could certainly reach out to our coastal staff that are more familiar with those types of projects to ask that question.
Robin?
So, and I don't want to belabor this point too much, but I will just a little. It just seems to me like it's kind of like, I kind of relate it with my kids and like when you get rewards and when you don't get rewards. But it seems like if everybody knows that they have to do this, but then they don't, the department says, you know, for your case, you don't have to, then they're like, oh, yay. But if they think they don't have to, and then the department says, oh, you have to, then they're like, well, gosh, why, you know, I just feel like it's a more negative perception to be told you have to do something than to be told, oh, you know, you're okay, you don't have to. So does that make sense what I'm saying? That having the shall sets a standard of expectation. And then when you're relieved of that requirement because of certain circumstances, then it's kind of a win for them. So I that's just my personal perspective.
Okay. Other questions, comments from the board?
In a different, are you gonna?
I was
Okay,
gonna
Melissa.
ask Melissa to come
Okay.
up and just respond to that. Are we dealing with real problems or are we dealing with style and
Okay.
language? To be blunt. Melissa, could you come up and from your perspective, are you hearing from people that there are some real problems with where engineering is required and where it isn't that would argue for a mandatory requirement?
Again, I'm speaking on behalf of my technical experts in their experience, which spanned decades. Yes. Again, I'm speaking on their behalf. From my perspective, for 22 years prior to coming to Wisconsin's Green Fire, I built and operated landfills for a living. And so I have experience understanding when engineering is required with exceptions for when they are not. And the idea is, why are we requiring engineering? To protect human health and the environment. When the exceptions come into place, it means that the standards have already been met, so therefore it is not needed. I also serve in the capacity as an elected official here in Stevens Point, and it's kind of like your permitted uses. Here's your standards. These are the requirements. If you're outside of that, now you need to move to a conditional use. So, and I know those are analogies, but again, I'm bringing into bear what my experts are telling me, that when there is a clear expectation to do something, unless you meet these certain requirements, you no longer have to meet this threshold. Everybody understands it's consistent across regions. Everybody knows staff is clear, developers are clear, property owners are clear, municipalities are clear. This is expected unless this happens. This is why my experts, again, with decades, probably a combined between Mel and Nancy of probably 60 years experience of needing to be this protective. So that is what they are telling me, and I am relaying to you.
So you're suggesting that we go to a system that mandates engineering, but has clearly defined off-ramps to allow
Correct.
people to avoid doing that.
Correct.
So they come in and say, do I need to do engineering? We give them an off-ramp, and then they say, you don't need it in this case for
Right.
this reason.
Speaking
We
from
end up at the same point.
Right.
With that process, as we do with the process we're using now, where people come in with a project and the department looks at it and say, you need engineering for this project, and here's why. Seems like we could be ending up at the same place, and it's just a kind of a style on how we communicate that and what route we take to get there.
the end result would be the same. The process is different. And here's why. On the front side, if it's clear. So if I'm a developer or property owner, I want to know what the clear scope is, what the costs are, what are the expectations. But if it's a may, or we're not sure, as you're planning a project, and let's say it's a bigger project, you clearly want to know what that looks like, or at least I would want to. So if you start with a clear expectation, shall, and then the developer, property owner, municipality, whomever is doing this work, shall, and then you go through and you go, oh, I meet this, I meet this, and I meet this. Those off-ramps are now telling me clearly, I don't have to do that. So, and again, if we can have clear and consistent language across all regions, so that DNR staff has clear guidance, again, developers, property owners, municipalities clearly understand, everybody's on the same page from the get-go, not on the backside, but from the get-go, right at the start. Again, building landfills for a living, I wanted to know what those were. Because when you're building multi-million-dollar structures that are expected to last 15 years and protect human health and the environment, I want to know what the standards are up front, because my capital costs are embedded in that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Other questions, comments from the board?
On other sections or on this
Yeah,
section?
no, for just the overall issue here,
Kyle, did you have more to respond to on that one?
Not unless there's a specific question.
Okay, thank you.
Marcy, go ahead.
Okay, so moving on to the exemptions in NR 320.04, exemptions from permitting. This is a series. So is this one that was generated by a statutory change? Okay,
So the exemptions as are listed in the proposed rule stem from statutory allowances for exempt. The department has specific rulemaking authority for design requirements and locational limitations for those exemptions. But these exemptions are stemming from statutory requirements.
okay, so my concern is in the temporary structures, in the fish habitats, the seasonally placed. And first, thank you for the briefing the other day and your colleagues. Those are always helpful. But as we discussed, the changes that we've seen on structures, recreational structures on lakes has been incredibly significant. And so to borrow from our colleague Doug's comments in other rules, it's unfortunate that sometimes our rules don't get looked at for, what did you say? This one was 20 years.
Yeah.
So we see these incredible changes, and I recognize that a statutory exemption kind of ties the department hands as far as strict, but how are we going to communicate the specifications for these kind of things, and how do you protect the shoreline and neighbors' rights in that kind of I mean, these are
Sure.
pretty significant exemptions.
Yeah, so the temporary structures exemption specifically includes a number of structures that have been commonly placed in lakes or waterways and include scientific monitoring devices, for example, which are widely placed for ecological evaluation practices with no clear avenue for regulatory authorization other than through an individual permit process presently. And so to that end, we sought to elaborate on the department's ability to create standards for temporary structure placement for things that were identified as potentially lower ecological risk, to allow for those activities to occur, knowing that we've seen them in certain locations and generally they're not providing a public interest nuisance. So to the extent that these exemptions protect adjacent property owners, there are placement restrictions requiring placement of, for instance, the temporary recreational structures to within a landowner's own riparian zone, which is described in this rule, so that it, if I'm speaking broadly, it can't go beyond their property line. So it's in the near shore area to which they place other structures like piers and boat lifts. And the size of those types of structures is limited to a small degree to not be, a problem ecologically.
Okay, and how would that be enforced, so to speak? Like I gave in the briefing,
Yep.
the mixed message of whether milfoil clings onto a fish stick and makes the problem
Right.
worse. The local and state split there, how does that work?
Sure. So for our other waterway exemptions, we've developed a number of exemption checklists that we keep on our website, as well as frequently asked questions for common waterway activities that people can initiate without a permit, where these standards are clearly identified and landowners understand their expectations prior to initiating an activity. Exemptions are not something which require pre-notification to the department to initiate. And so we don't always know where these activities are occurring unless somebody is submitting a voluntary exemption determination request to us, as that is an option for different landowners if they wanted regulatory certainty in whether what they were proposing or not does meet the exemption standards. And so to the extent that we're enforcing on the exemptions, we get complaints from many different sources and have to prioritize those complaints and follow up accordingly.
Thank you.
Any more, Marcy?
In different topic areas, anybody else have that?
Go ahead.
Okay. Just in general, the comment about the technical advisory committee not seeing the final, I know it was publicly posted and accessible to the public. And I'm not sure if this is a question for you or the attorney or procedural, but is it customary that the technical advisory committee would receive a packet at the end? Anybody know?
I understand that varies across programs, and it was not our intention to not share the final version of the rule that we shared with the board. So looking hindsight 2020, we should have shared that final version with the technical advisory committee at the same time that we'd passed it on for the board.
Okay, and the time limit on this is December or November? To get it
Correct.
to the legislature?
It's December.
December. Thank you.
Other questions? Robin?
So, first of all, I appreciate the complexity of putting this rule together. And I also appreciate the expertise within the department. And I know that it's not easy doing all of this. So I want to commend you guys for all of the time and effort that you put into this and the thoughtfulness and, trying to do the best based on the science. But I also feel like, we're a unique state in terms of the public trust doctrine and the fact that, we have obligations to protect the waters for all people. and that's kind of a serious thing. And so I guess I would ask you a question as to whether or not you feel that having a final discussion with the technical advisory group would add any benefits to kind of the final product, or are you comfortable that you've heard the discussions and you feel like this is the best result the department can have?
I'm confident that we've carefully considered all of the feedback that we've received from technical advisory committee members throughout the process, as well as during the public comment period. Many of those public comments were provided by technical advisory committee members, and we took a diversity of positions on various topics. And so I'm confident that the department evaluated all of those comments and carefully considered them and balanced those comments in this final rule package.
Other questions or comments? Robin?
Yeah, could you clarify for me, I did have a discussion with Ben a little bit about the structures in special areas.
Areas of special natural
Yep.
resource interest? Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Can you just share a little bit whether or not kind of how this the requirements from a statutory perspective are, and how those are addressed within the rule?
Yeah. So piers and wharves and swim rafts are specific activities of exemptions that are not disallowed in exemptions. And it's because of how they are addressed in statute, in that there are two pathways for allowances for piers. One under the 30.12 exemption standards, which has the ESNARI kick out, if you want to call it that. The other pathway is through the 30.13 statutory allowance, which does not have an ESNARI kick out. And so it's long since been the department's interpretation that a pier complying with the ESNARI kick out size limitations can also be exempt under the 30.13 statutory allowance for pier placement that allows for pier placement in ESNARI. And so it's for that reason that the exemption blends both of those statutory allowances into a single exemption in this rule package. And you see an exception to the ESNARI kick out for piers and boat shelters because of how they're addressed statutorily. And I think that gets to one other point that was raised regarding size limitations for those activities. Those sizes are established in those statutes that I had just mentioned. And so for that reason, part of this rulemaking effort was to intentionally not restate statutory requirements. And so that's why they don't exist here within the text, but they do exist in statute and therefore are applicable to those types of activities.
It's a very complex rule, and it's very important. So thank you for those explanations.
Kyle, in that situation, does the existing statute and the codes that are being recommended provide adequate protection to those special natural resource areas? That's the bottom line.
We believe so. The department also retains authority to elevate activities proposed in those types of areas to a higher permit review in the event that we find that the standards prescribed for these activities aren't sufficiently protective of those sensitive areas. And so that is the department is able to do that and has done so on a couple of occasions.
Great, thank you. Other questions or comments? Are we ready for a motion?
I think Kyle's ready for a motion.
I think so. Does anyone care to offer a motion relative to this recommendation?
So moved.
Understand, Deb, that's a motion to approve? Okay, we've got a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Patty seconds. Any further discussion? Motion to approve the staff recommendations on item 4A. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Kyle, thank you very much. It's been a long slog.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And thanks to the board for a very healthy discussion. Those are important questions. We'll move on to 4B. Request the board adopt board order WA 12-21, proposed rules affecting chapters NR 660, 661, 664, 665, 668, 670, and 673 related to modifying and expanding universal waste management regulations. Andrea Keller, Hazardous Waste Prevention and Management Section Manager. Welcome, Andrea.
Good morning. Thank you. And good morning, Chair Smith, members of the board, and Deputy Secretary Little. I am the Hazardous Waste Program Section Manager in the Waste Materials Management Program with the Wisconsin DNR. Today, I'm requesting that the board adopt the final rule for Board Order WA 1221. Board Order 1221 was developed to update and clarify hazardous waste regulations pertaining to a subset of hazardous waste referred to as universal wastes. For some regulatory background, hazardous wastes are solid wastes that, based on defined criteria such as toxicity or ignitability, have additional management standards due to the hazards associated with these wastes. These regulations are sometimes referred to as cradle-to-grave requirements, as they begin at the point when the material becomes a waste through handling and management, transportation, treatment, and disposal. Hazardous waste regulations are first and foremost preventative. They are focused on minimizing exposure risks, typically through identifying the hazards, containing the waste, labeling the containers, preventing emissions and releases, training staff, developing emergency response, and proper treatment and disposal. It's important to note today that state and federal regulations do not regulate those hazardous waste generated or disposed of by households. These rules pertain to business wastes today. Universal waste regulations in Wisconsin are intended to be consistent with federal rules to create a level playing field and ease of use for entities operating within Wisconsin and across state borders. Universal wastes are those wastes that are high volume, meaning they are generated by many entities in many business environments, yet low risk. This is because these may be products that once waste, such as batteries or a container of used pesticides or partially used pesticides. They are labeled and contained. They are less variable in their hazards as other generated hazardous wastes. Additionally, universal waste regulations are optional or voluntary, and when implemented have been shown to decrease costs and increase recycling opportunities while maintaining protections to human health and the environment. What this means is that these rules are specifically alternative management standards, and entities can choose to manage these wastes under full regulation, or they can choose to manage this waste under modified or reduced regulation. The proposed rule will create a new category of universal waste in Wisconsin. This category of aerosol cans as a universal waste is already effective at the federal level, and it is also effective at our surrounding states. Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, and Minnesota have already implemented this rule. Aerosol cans will join batteries, pesticides, lamps, also referred to as bulbs, and mercury-containing equipment. And the benefits to these reduced regulations are found with an allowance for increased storage time, transport without a license or a manifest, decreased fees, and more. And again, there is a potential for reduced management and disposal costs and improved recycling efforts. Based upon federal study, 69% of the retail trade industry will see some benefit from this rule being implemented in Wisconsin, and approximately 17% of our manufacturers will see some benefit from this rule being adopted in Wisconsin. For outreach efforts, we use the tools that we have. Specifically, we have a Gov delivery system that reaches over 9,000 subscribers, primarily businesses and interested parties in the state. We presented at many interested parties, including the Solid Waste Interested Parties of Wisconsin, Associated Recyclers of Wisconsin, the Federation of Environmental Technologists, City and Villages Mutual Insurance Company. We had over 73 attendees at our scope statement and 31 at our proposed rules hearing, which is a lot for my program. So it was very, very positive to see this feedback. And then uniformly across the board, there was overall support for this rule being adopted. In addition to the support, we did receive some feedback during the public comment period. And based on this feedback, we revised our language to better align with federal code. We removed or modified language that was deemed less stringent or more stringent. We had some language proposed in there that we've removed and taken into further consideration. And we modified language regarding the definition of storage, which pertains to when universal waste is transported to a receiving facility. If they store the waste prior to treatment, it can incur a licensing action. And so we wanted to better define what storage meant for those entities. And we addressed our language to better modify and take into account industry concerns on that front. We evaluated but did not add additional waste streams as proposed by interested parties. It concluded battery-containing devices, solar panels, used antifreeze, and paint wastes. Currently, there are other alternative management standards within our hazardous waste regulations for paint, antifreeze, and some battery-containing devices, as those devices are well managed in our e-cycle program in the state. And solar panels in particular, there are regulations being developed at the federal level, and we just chose that we did not want to get out ahead of the feds on that front. We want to see where they're going with that regulation before we implemented any of our own. Any questions?
Thank you, Melissa. Excuse me. Thank you, Andrea. Are there any questions from the board?
I just want to make a comment that in our discussion, you clarified the importance of EPA and that EPA, as part of their authority, reviews the rules that we have. And so they reviewed these and were, it did not have any issues with anything in the rules. So they were okay with what you've done. So that's great to see that happen.
Thank you. We are an authorized program. We implement and work well with our partners in Region 5. We are obligated, if we want to ensure authorization in some of that partnership, that has some financial and, legal consequences to ensure that we're as consistent as possible. But we are committed to meeting those standards that they set. They did have concerns with some language and we removed them, and we are going to address them at a later time. So we're happy to partner with them on this.
We have no appearances on this one. Any more questions? If not, we're probably ready for a motion.
I would move approval.
Okay, Robin moves approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Marcy seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Andrea, you're still on deck. Let's move on to item 4C. Request adoption of Board Order WA 11-21. Proposed rules revising chapters NR 660 and 661 to incorporate federal hazardous waste regulations promulgated since the previous authorization of the Wisconsin Hazardous Waste Program related to updated test methods. Again, Andrea, welcome.
Thank you. Today I'm requesting the board adopt Board Order WA 11-21 and final rule. This particular board order was developed to update Wisconsin regulations to match federal language already in effect, pertaining primarily to laboratory test methods. The updating of these flashpoint test methods are very specific to an ignitable hazardous waste determination, which means it's only applicable to labs that run a test method to make a hazardous waste determination. There are many other types of ignitability test methods that this rule does not impact. Similar to the previous agenda item, this rule is going to modify language in the 600 series, and it will allow for a flexible test method to promote accurate waste determinations. It is an optional test method. Labs can use their existing equipment. There is no requirement to change or no deadline to change to the new method, so this is just another flexibility. It promotes the discontinuation of the use of mercury-containing equipment that is currently utilized in the test method that is currently promulgated. EPA does see this as an environmental benefit. They're trying to move towards alternatives to mercury devices. Cost savings to labs. They no longer need to replace and repair outdated and difficult to maintain equipment. They can, when the time comes, they can move over to a more readily accessible test method equipment. It allows us to adopt the federal requirements that are already in effect. And there are little subsets of this rule that EPA kind of tucked in and we thought were valuable for us to adopt as well, having to do with the definition of aqueous solution in alcohols. What this does is it kind of narrows the definition and ensures that there's not an accidental capture of, say, consumable alcohols and some paints into the definition of regulated waste. We don't want to be regulating things that we shouldn't be regulating. So that was a clarification. The cross-references pertaining to the transport of hazardous waste are perceived as a potential time savings. It is simply aligning hazardous waste labeling requirements during transport with existing DOT requirements. So in addition to the outreach outlined in the previous agenda item through our Gov delivery and our presentations across the state over the course of 2 years, because these rules were specifically impacting or had the potential to impact labs, we've reached out to approximately 30 labs across the state, including the Wisconsin State Lab of Hygiene. This included our licensed hazardous waste treatment and storage disposal facilities and labs that are certified through the DNR process for this test method. So we felt that we were able to very, very adequately target those impacted entities. We did receive support from the rule from the State Lab of Hygiene and indication that it may take time for other labs to move to this new test method. So it will, we're unlikely to see immediate impacts, but it is, again, at their leisure, and we did not receive any substantive concerns or opposition to the rule. Questions?
Thank you. And we have no public speakers on this item either. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I just want to, again, the briefings are so helpful, so you are spared my questions. But yes, I would make a motion to approve WA 11-21.
Got a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And we have a second from Patty. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you, Andrea. Let's move on to the next item, which is also yours.
And we went from the most difficult to the easiest, didn't we?
Exactly.
Seems to be. We'll see. Item 4D, request the board adopt board order WA 14-21, proposed rules affecting chapters NR 660 to 679, related to technical corrections of state hazardous waste regulations. Again, Andrea, you're on.
All right, today I am requesting that the board adopt board order WA 1421, final rule pertaining to the technical corrections and clarifications package. As a federally authorized program, we strive to maintain equivalency. This final rule will address technical corrections identified by both the department and US EPA with the goal of maintaining equivalency and ensuring accuracy and clarity for the regulated community. Additionally, some minor clarifications were developed primarily within the rules governing licensed hazardous waste facilities. Simply, making titles more clear, helping them point to directions within our code. Our code is fairly complex, and so there was an opportunity there to show where a lot of cross-referencing was needed. From an impact statement, we anticipate minimal to no impact on regulated businesses. Most of the corrections are minor. No major impacts to current practices, and the clarifications are not more stringent than federal regulations. We did the same level of outreach with our technical corrections. We did not receive any substantive comments or concerns on the technical corrections. Any questions?
No questions from the board, I guess. Can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt Board Order WA 14-21.
Patty moves approval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Robin seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you,
Thank you.
Andrea.
Thank you.
Next item is 4E. Request the board adopt Board Order WM 09-23. Proposed rules affecting Chapter NR 12 related to wildlife damage and abatement. Brad Cooley, Wildlife Damage Specialist. Welcome, Brad.
Good morning, Chairman Smith, Deputy Secretary Little, members of the board. My name is Brad Cooley. I am now the Northern District Wildlife Supervisor, so position I've had for 3 weeks now, but I'm here in front of you, trying to wrap up things from my old position as a wildlife damage specialist. It was a position I was in for 17 years. So here requesting your adoption of Board Order WM 09-23. This slide is just kind of a summary of where we're at. I'm requesting final adoption of the rule. The board approved the scope statement back on October 25th of 2023. We got to work right away drafting a rule package. That rule package went to public hearing from June 19th through June 28th. And then we also had a virtual hearing on August 8th of 2024 that we had 5 participants participate or at least view that virtual hearing. We did not receive any written comments on the rule package, and we did not have any comments submitted during the public hearing as well. So background, what is NR 12? So NR 12 is our Wildlife Damage and Nuisance Control Administrative Code chapter. So this deals with general nuisance removal regulations, you know, when someone can remove an animal, when they cannot, when a DNR permit's required, and when it's not. This section of code also has rules for our wildlife damage abatement and claims program. That's a program that provides damage abatement assistance and compensation to commercial agricultural producers for damages from deer, bear, turkey, elk, geese, cougar, and sandhill cranes will become part of that program if and when there's a hunting season for sandhill cranes. So our review process, this was kind of a proactive effort where after 17 years in the program, you know, there's been a variety of statutory, administrative code, and policy changes over those years. So we just wanted to sit down and take a comprehensive, thorough look at NR 12 and make sure it was up to date and reflects how that program or those programs are administered. So we got to work. We formed a team to do that. It consisted of internal staff from obviously wildlife management, law enforcement, our attorneys, and then customer service staff. We also had externals partake on that team, and that consisted of staff from USDA. They had several people on that team, and then also representatives from Farm Bureau and Conservation Congress. So we had 3 meetings. We sat down and went through each line of code and addressed, you know, needed changes to reflect, you know, changes in code, policy, and statute. So the goal of this effort was just to update, you know, those codes to make sure that it's consistent while providing protections for our wildlife and certainly being able for homeowners and agricultural producers to effectively deal with conflicts, you know, that do happen with wildlife. The majority of the proposed changes in here are, you know, kind of housekeeping and technical changes, updating definitions to make sure that, you know, they reflect changes in code or statute or are, you know, descriptive enough so people understand what they are. You know, example of that is what's contiguous land, you know, so making sure that, you know, contiguous land, you know, land that joins at a corners is considered contiguous land. So updating things like that, updating terminology like harvest authorizations versus tags, you know, some simple changes like that. We are addressing some administrative code changes. One of those examples is elimination of the Horicon Goose Management Zone. We no longer have that zone, so we no longer issue animal removal permits for geese in the Horicon zone. And then we also identified a number of changes to address changes in federal regulations. So updating references to federal statute, and then also implementing things like the blackbird depredation order and the agricultural depredation order that allows removal of geese for agricultural damages in the spring. So the majority of these are, kind of technical or housekeeping changes. However, I do want to highlight some of the more substantial changes that we did identify, or this team identified. One of those is expanding the license requirements for elk shooting permits. Currently in code, you need to have an elk harvest license to participate on an elk shooting permit. That's very restrictive. Right now, there's only 8 licensed hunters that can, legally remove an elk. So we've expanded that to be more consistent with our permitting options for deer and bear and turkey and those other species, where anybody with a license that authorizes hunting with a firearm or hunting with a crossbow or hunting with a vertical bow can participate on those elk shooting permits. That expands the opportunity for people to participate, and it still provides those protections to make sure that individuals out there have met the age and hunter safety or hunter education requirements to be out there and actively trying to remove wildlife. Another change that we've tried to address is providing more flexibility to counties. So the Wildlife Damage Abatement and Claims Program is a DNR program that we oversee. However, it's implemented by statute. It's implemented by the counties. So there's currently 70 counties that participate in that program. The only 2 that do not are Kenosha and Menominee. So those 70 counties, file budgets with DNR every year. They file reimbursement requests. One of the changes that we've identified is the ability to give them more flexibility to do that quarterly. Some counties prefer to do that biannually. Some counties prefer to do that once a year annually. So we just wanted to update code to give them that flexibility to submit those reimbursements on a time frame that they consider reasonable. Another one that we're proposing is to change the expiration date of deer shooting permits, the agricultural damage permits primarily. Right now, code says that those permits expire at the end of the archery season. So what does that mean? We have regular units, that's early January, January 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever that date might be in a given year. Metro units, that date is January 31st. Now in regular units, we also have the archery season extension that goes through January 31st. So there was a lot of confusion among permittees of when exactly did that permit end. We tried to provide that clarification in the permit, but there was still confusion there. So what we're proposing is that we just have a December 31st expiration date every year. December 31st, those permits expire. It's a clear date, clears up that confusion, and still allows us to issue permits or extend permits if there are ongoing damages, but it's a more consistent date where hunters and permittees know when that permit expires. The other thing we're proposing is that we create the definition of what is commercial. Within the Wildlife Damage Abatement and Claims Program, it's open agricultural producers, but there's never been a definition of what is agricultural. Some counties have adopted a $500 billable sales or commodities for that definition of commercial. Some counties don't have any value, and other counties have the $1,000 proposal that we're coming to you today. And that $1,000 was supported by the team, so that, like I said, that consisted of folks from the Farm Bureau and USDA and the Conservation Congress. So we're proposing that $1,000 of commodities or billable sales is a threshold for what is considered agricultural and eligible for that damage program. The other change we're proposing here is some additional language that would give counties the flexibility to make sure producers are being responsive to hunting access requests. So in recent years, we've had a number of complaints about producers not returning phone calls to hunters that are requesting permission to hunt on these damaged properties. So by state statute, any property that receives damage abatement assistance or compensation through the program, they have to open that property up to public hunting for that species causing damage. So for example, if a producer contacts us and they want to have assistance for deer damage, they have to open their property up to the public for deer hunting access during the state deer hunting season. There are a couple exceptions to that hunting access, but I won't get into that. What we've heard is from some hunters is that, they've contacted producers to try to get hunting access. Producers aren't being responsive and calling them back. So we're proposing some language in here that gives counties, that requires that producers be more responsive to hunting access requests, but then gives counties more flexibility to determine if someone's not being responsive to those requests, and then implementing a penalty of program suspension if the county feels they're not adequately responding to hunters. The other change that we're proposing here is increased protections of when a permit is required for live trapping. So right now, DNR permits are only required if someone wants to live trap a deer, bear, or any endangered or threatened species. A very old administrative code that we feel doesn't provide adequate protections for some of our species that are more commonly causing issues. So we're expanding to include permits for live trapping wolves, turkey, badger, cougar, bobcat, fisher, otter, or any other animal that's classified as a harmful wild animal. So again, just providing more adequate protection. So for those species that we want to make sure are adequately protected. And obviously we want to know if those animals are being moved around the state as well. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Brad. Any questions from the board? Marcy?
Hi, Brad. Thanks for the overview. Thanks for the briefing. Can we talk a little bit more about how that number of 1,000 was developed with the commercial in mind for eligibility? Was it compared to other states or because like yesterday we had this example of the ginseng growers would hit $1,000 very quickly on turkey damage. Do you want to comment on how that came about?
Yeah, it was just general discussion through that team, of what might be a reasonable dollar amount for what is considered commercial. So yeah, it was just general discussion. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to compare it to other states because other states don't have a very comprehensive program like Wisconsin has. Some states will provide, deer damage abatement or compensation. Some states will provide compensation for wolf damages, but here, like I said, we provide compensation for deer, bear, elk, turkey, geese. We have, a lot more comprehensive of a program, and they don't have those commercial standards that we have here for our program.
Thank you.
I should note we have one public appearance for this.
Sorry.
Jerome Donahue on screen.
Thank you, Chair Smith, Board Deputy Secretary Little, for the allowance for me to provide public input in today's meeting. The NRP was provided a green sheet and subsequent correspondence memorandum letter dated August 26, 2024. The background information was the board's review and preparation of this meeting for discussion and consideration. I would like for the board to add to the discussion and consideration clarifying wildlife damage claim eligibility requirements regarding concerns of wildlife damage to the increased public concerns of wildlife diseases negatively affecting agriculture. Wildlife crop damage continues to spread across the state, such as avian bird flu, CWD, and other diseases that have a negative impact on agricultural commercial production systems, such as crops, poultry, dairy, and other livestock that are there for human food production and health. The program will need to be inclusive of these disease concerns as they continue to expand, whereas the DNR hasn't engaged these concerns in a positive mitigation effort to reduce in all cases of wildlife disease spreading, having that negative impact on agriculture in our state. This public input I provided today was submitted as public input to the on a DNR hearing appearance form and submitted August 9th, 2024. It isn't in your packet of your background information on summary of public input, since I was the only one that was on this public hearing, not 5 members of the public, which also notates there was no written comment to the rule received during the open period. So with that, I just wanted to bring to light again You know, the NRB noted its own disease concerns regarding continued spread of things like CWD. And by omitting my public input for the board's discussion and consideration of hearing testimony, it just doesn't allow for making clear decision for the board and action item request. So the crop damage rule proposal needs to be amended to include adding these disease concerns to the crop damage rule proposal. There would also seem to be a need for the board to have a congruency check for public input on any subject information provided or not provided to the board, so it can make correct, clear decisions brought in agenda items representing citizens of the state. Thank you for the allowance of this input, and if you have any questions, I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerome. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, thank you. Are there further questions of Brad?
Do you want to address Mr. Donahue's concerns?
Yeah, what's covered under a wildlife damage abatement and claims program is determined by state statute. So state statute requires or has, defines what's included under there. And right now that definition is commercial agricultural crops. It includes things like Christmas trees and tree nurseries and truck gardens. It does include livestock, but historically impacts from disease have not been, considered an impact to be eligible under that program for livestock. It's mainly livestock depredations from like bears is what's included. So yeah, to address Mr. Donahue's concerns, I think you would have to look at statute and see if there's some changes that could be made statutorily to allow that.
Other questions?
So
Robin?
So just to clarify, I guess I'm confused about the no comments were received. So did those comments come in outside that period of time? Is that like where is that discrepancy?
Yeah, a good question. And I'm not sure, I know talking with Scott Carroll, our rules and regulations specialist, he did not receive any written comments during that public review period. And certainly during the public hearing, we did not have any oral comments, during that public hearing. Mr. Donahue did provide some comments during that, but it was not related to the rule. And, he said he would follow up with written comments. So I think it may be a case where those written comments were received after that period.
Other questions, comments? Marcy?
The issue of enrollees opening to public hunting, the enrollee may choose how often notification is required. Again, can you clarify the discussion of what the problem has been there? Because, the farmer may have, or the egg producer may have a number of people that already have it. So is it just a matter of getting back to someone who's asked and say, all my tags are, or what are they called now? Harvest
Authorizations.
Harvest authorizations, thank you. Are filled? Is it that simple, or?
Yeah,
Just
pretty much.
clarify.
So there's two things to look at here. One is a lot of these farms do receive deer shooting permits or shooting permits. It is the permittee's full discretion on who they provide those shooting permit tags to. It can be friends, family, it can be public. There's no requirement to give them to the public. However, they have full discretion on where those tags go. The other requirement is during the public hunting seasons, they have to provide access to their property for state licensed hunters using their own state issued tags. And the problem we're having is hunters are contacting the producers, saying, hey, I want to come out and hunt this weekend, leaving voice messages or trying to notify them, but they're not getting a return call from the producer. They're not hearing back from them. So it's leading to a lot of frustration where they're feeling like they're being denied access to that property because the producer's not getting back. So yeah, it's just trying to make sure that producers are being responsive to those requests to, for those hunters to get access to the property.
Yeah, I could see the landowner's perspective on that as well, right? That you can't the feeling of your property being open to the public when you have gates and all kinds of things going on the farm. You know, the clarification of how that happens, and the communication would be key.
Yep, exactly. And that's why hunters are required to make contact with the producer before they, get access to the property. And just for that fact, to know where cattle might be, know where gates may be, maybe to know where, if somebody else is potentially hunting that property, it's to, provide assurances that, everyone's adequately informed of who's going to be out there and when and what, safety concerns there might be on the property.
Other questions? You ready for a motion?
I'll move approval for WM 09-23.
Marcy moves approval. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Deb seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
And with that, we're a little past our break time, so let's take a break and be back here at 10:25. And at that time, we'll go to open forum, and we've got several appearances there. Thank you. We'll call the meeting back into order. Shortly before we move into item 5, open forum, I'd like to just make a comment that I slid past this morning when I was talking about meeting here in Plover. I think everybody can appreciate this brand new building we're in, and it's kind of a unique building, and I just wanted to mention a little bit about that. This building is funded through private donations and sponsors, and it is run by a nonprofit, 501c3, that is titled Farming for Future, and the building is the Food and Farm Exploration Center. So it's just getting started. It's a wonderful building, and for those of you that are viewing online and don't have the benefit of being here in the building, if you have the opportunity of coming to Plover and stopping in to see the new facility, I highly encourage it and thank them for the opportunity for the board to meet here. So with that, let's move to item 5, open forum. We have a number of appearances, and we'll start with Rip Koken from Washington Island. Rip is appearing in person. Thanks for making the trip, Rip, and you're up.
All right. Oh.
Thank you for preserving and protecting our natural resources in Wisconsin, and thank you for your time. We are from Door County, members of the Washington Island Sportsman and Conservation Club. I'm Martina Koken, and this is my husband, Rip Common Sense Koken.
Oh, surprise.
We have a big cormorant problem and need your help. Approximately 20,500 cormorants inhabit Pilot and Spider Islands within 9 miles of Washington Island. That number is consequential. What say you, Common Sense?
The high concentration of birds, including pelicans and gulls, have destroyed the fisheries. Since cormorants started roosting on Spider and Pilot Islands, they have consumed more than 115 million pounds of fish. Further, the cormorant acid guano has destroyed both the island's vegetation and polluted the water, soil, and air. Worse, bird guano is damaging the active 1858 lighthouse on Pilot Island and the shipwrecks. Both are listed on the National Historic Register of Places.
Why are we coming to you? Your website says under environmental protection, clean air, clean water, and healthy landscapes. These are the foundations of Wisconsin's economy, environment, and quality of life. They are the assets that separate us from the rest of the pack. U.S. Fish and Wildlife's unmanaged cormorants on Pilot and Spider Islands have exploited our natural resources. Clean air, clean water, and healthy landscape, along with other migrating birds, have vanished.
Common sense says it's not just a federal problem. It's a state problem that requires your attention. In 2023, Door County's tourists brought in $620 million to our economy and $51 million to state and local taxes. Pilot and Spider Islands' decimation and smelly atmosphere are repulsive to tourists. To address this issue, the Door County Board of Supervisors approved Resolution 2023-20 and sent it to Martha Williams, Director of U.S. Fish and Wildlife, requesting removal of the cormorants and pelicans from Pilot Island.
The once beautiful biodiverse Pilot Island has become a ghost of its former self. Common sense will say.
With approximately 10,000 cormorants and uncounted pelicans and gulls on a 3.5 acre close proximity breeds disease. E. coli abounds in the waters around Pilot Island. Further, the phosphorus and nitrogen runoff from the guano adds to the alga blooms. 1.6 million Wisconsinites get their drinking water from Lake Michigan and Lake Superior, making it critical that this type of pollution be addressed.
We ask you as leaders in preserving Wisconsin's natural resources to use your strong voice with Fish and Wildlife to support removing cormorants from Pilot and reducing them on Spider Islands. Then we can claim clean air, clean water, and healthy landscape, and our finite assets will be in balance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Robin?
I'm just curious as to what kind of response and what kind of communications you've had with the Fish and Wildlife.
We have met with Fish and Wildlife 3 times. We were supposed to be part of a task force. And to date, Fish and Wildlife has not done anything. We don't have any indication that they plan to do anything. And our attitude is don't come to the table anymore unless you have solutions.
Other questions, comments? Sounds like you got a very serious situation there, and
Yeah.
Stephen, could we have someone on staff just kind of look into this and see where we're at as a state and what kind of influence we might be able to bear on it?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. I did actually have a conversation with staff, and from what I've been told, Fish and Wildlife Service has convened and in the process of convening a group of their professional staff along with our professional staff to review the documentation that has been provided to begin the process for what can be done to address this problem that has been identified. I believe that there is a hope that there will be a resolution provided by June of 2025.
So thank you very much for your presentation. It sounds like we have a voice at the table and may be able to influence this in a good way.
Well, we can't wait to meet with you all.
Okay, thank you. Our next appearance is Kathy Wendling from Bayfield. Again, this will be a virtual appearance on the North Pikes Creek wetlands. Kathy, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me? Can you hear
Welcome,
me?
Kathy. You can,
Thank
loud and clear.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I'm Kathy Wendling, president of the Friends of the North Pikes Creek Wetlands Organization. The Friends own and manage property on the Bayfield Peninsula that comprises the headwaters of North Pikes Creek, which is a Class 1 trout stream with a naturally reproducing population of brook trout. I am commenting today on non-lethal management of high-profile wildlife. Our organization has followed the work that USDA Wildlife Services has undertaken in northern Wisconsin to protect livestock from wolf predation. According to David Ruid, 100% of the projects have been successful, and these producers are no longer losing livestock to wolves, and our group applauds Wildlife Services for these non-lethal projects. Wolves are an important keystone species. However, their importance is eclipsed by that of another keystone species, the American beaver. Beaver's engineering efforts are amazing for a small, furry creature with bad eyesight. Beavers modify the environment to meet their own needs, and while they do that, they create habitat for 75% of Wisconsin's wildlife species, and that includes 32% of Wisconsin's threatened and endangered species. Beaver activity also provides free ecosystem services for people, such as slowing floodwaters and improving water quality. Sometimes where beavers build their dams can cause conflict with humans. However, there are cost-effective, non-lethal measures that can easily be employed to mitigate these problems. We believe it is essential to manage conflicts with beavers in order to coexist with them and benefit from their activities. So our Friends organization noted that in 2023, wildlife services staff performed 12 non-lethal beaver management activities. We are encouraged by this work, and we would like this organization to perform non-lethal control measures whenever and wherever possible. We'd like wildlife services staff to seize the opportunity to train other entities like our town and county road crews to manage beaver by non-lethal means. As the Wisconsin DNR and USDA's APHIS Wildlife Services rewrite their beaver management plans in 24 and 25, habitat protection and non-lethal beaver management should be planned priorities. Non-lethal beaver management is essential to protect our critical and diminishing wetland ecosystems. We need to keep water on the landscape here in Wisconsin, particularly as our climate warms, and coexisting with beaver will allow us to benefit from their valuable and free ecosystem services. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kathy. Questions from the board? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much. And thanks for taking care of Pikes Creek.
You're welcome.
Okay, our next appearance is in person. Jeff Meisman, Presque Isle, appearing on Wake Boat Ballast Systems. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Chairman Smith, Deputy Secretary Little, and board members, thank you for the opportunity to speak to the subject on wake boat ballast systems. My name is Jeff Meisman. I'm a retired registered professional engineer in the state of Wisconsin with 37 years of industrial hydraulic and fluid mechanic practical experience. Today, I will be speaking about the design and inspection procedures used on wake boats. It was stated at the last NRB meeting that the boat industry has developed an app that details the decontamination process at your fingertips. All you have to do is go to the app and it's free, put in your boat and it works. The ballast tank decontamination app discussed at the last meeting is not a procedure for cleaning ballasted boats. This is merely a collection of diagrams that show various wake boat models and where the water enters the ballast system and where the water discharges. Speaking as an engineer that has written preventive maintenance procedures and quality control work instructions, this is far from a decontamination procedure. This would be like showing you a picture of an engine in your car and telling you to go change the oil. Professional engineers have an ethical responsibility to design and build systems that comply with local, state, and federal regulations. The law in Wisconsin is clear. Boats must be drained of all residual water before leaving the landing. Wake boat manuals instruct operators do not completely drain the water in the ballast tanks because this could cause damage to the ballast systems. The root cause of this problem is the wake boat industry is knowingly and intentionally designing and building ballast systems that violate current Wisconsin regulations. You cannot inspect out critical design flaws. Also, a decontamination procedure is only good if it's used. A properly designed ballast system should completely drain residual lake water, thus eliminating the need for decontamination. Inspection, if necessary, should be easily accessible. I'm positive this can be done. So why is the wake boat industry not taking this approach? Why is the wake boat industry getting away with design engineering problems? Because no government agency is stepping up and enforcing the rules that have existed since 2007. The NRB has the responsibility and authority to enact an emergency order protecting our lakes and waterways. They did so in 2007 to protect our lakes against AIS and fish virus. The emergency order became a regulation NR 19-055, stating all residual lake water must be drained before leaving the landing. The wake boat industry had since 2007 to design and build ballast systems that comply with this regulation. They did not do so. Let's not forget this is a design engineering problem that was created by the wake boat industry. If these ballasted boats cannot comply with NR 19-055, then ballast system use in Wisconsin waterways should be prohibited until they can comply. The NRB, DNR, and legislation has a responsibility and the authority to enact and enforce laws that protect our resources. I ask you to step up to protect our valued natural resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Long time concerning problem. Appreciate your comments and appreciate your hard work on this. Any questions from the board? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Next is Joe Garstecki, West Bend, Little Cedar Lake, from Lakes at Stake, talking on wake boat local ordinance efforts. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, appreciate the opportunity, board members. Little Cedar Lake, West Bend, and now Lakes at Stake, part of a coalition of about 20 groups representing about 10,000 members that are concerned about the potential damages that wake boats may be causing. I appeared about a year ago here, and I talked about what I foresaw as the potential infighting on this issue, and it started, if you're not aware of it. There's a lot of verbal fist fighting going on out there on a lake by lake basis. It's a pretty tough battle. We're still looking for the state to step up. What I've noticed in the last year is that a lot of board members from individual lakes are kind of looking at the DNR to help solve this problem. The DNR is sort of looking at the legislature to solve this problem, and the legislature is sort of looking at the individual lakes in turn to solve the problem. So not a whole lot is happening. It's a serious problem, but it can be solved simply. Not easily, but simply. All we need to focus on is keeping wake surfing activity via wake boats 700 feet from shore and about 30 feet of water. That's what we need to focus on. If we can do that, we may be able to push something forward and get something accomplished. So, you know, I kind of view Wisconsin lakes, fish, and water as Wisconsin's gold, Wisconsin's oil. So we need to find a way to protect Wisconsin's gold and Wisconsin's oil. This board allocates, or at least supports, the expenditure of millions of dollars every year to support fish stocking and to try to prevent the spread of invasive species. But it's very possible that wake sports, wake surfing, is actually destroying some of those efforts and wasting some of those dollars. So we really need to get to the bottom of this. So I ask you once again, with your strengths, with your knowledge, with your experience, with a new legislature coming in session in January, to do whatever you can to influence this fight. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Joe. Just a comment. Very much appreciate the collaboration that's developed amongst the groups that are interested in this. And I think trying to agree on a common message so there isn't as much confusion and difference with the numbers and the tweaks that everybody takes. I think that'll be very helpful in moving the message forward. In terms of one agency or group looking at another, I think in terms of the ask that people are making, it's going to take all of those entities working together to accomplish what you want to get done. So it's more a matter of getting legislative support, agency support, and local government, local citizen support to work together on solutions here. And the industry needs to be part of this discussion.
Agreed. All right,
Thank you.
thanks again.
Question?
Oh, sure.
Robin.
So, thank you for your efforts. I also appreciated the video that was recently produced. I think that was done by the Lakes at Stake group. And I guess what I have heard in the past relates to the research and the data that identifies the damage at certain depths, certain there isn't definitive data, and I think at the last board meeting there was a reference to work that was being done by this. I think it might be Minnesota.
Yeah, University of
Institute for
Minnesota.
Research. And so I guess I agree that there are concerns. I respect the fact that there's some need for more timely science-based data to move this issue forward. I'm appreciative that Minnesota is doing that. I kind of wish that there were others really focusing on doing more studies within Wisconsin to do more documentation. I think the visual is one thing, but I don't know if you've partnered at all with folks within the university higher education community to identify whether there's any research being done within the state on that. I think it would be really helpful. Just I don't know if that's part of your group or not.
It would be helpful. And there are other studies available. And for instance, the state of Vermont acted rather aggressively on this issue, and they conducted their own studies. There's a lot of science out there. We have worked with the legislature to try and get some funding to be made available for the DNR here in Wisconsin to conduct studies. One of the fears there is that might be 3 or 4 or 5 years out. And obviously, we'd like to see some activity and some legislation prior to that.
Marcy?
Thank you for your testimony. You were listed as wake boat local ordinance efforts. Does West Bend's Little Cedar Lake have a local ordinance?
No, we tried and formed a subcommittee to present to a full board, and we were unsuccessful. It's a pretty difficult task when for instance, my lake really only has about 150 navigable acres, and we have 20 wake boats on our lake. And those are 20 very well vested, very emotional people that want to protect their rights. That makes it a very tough battle on a lake by lake basis. a little bit of a difference too in southern Wisconsin versus northern. I've talked about that many times with my friends from northern Wisconsin. Southern Wisconsin is inundated with wake boats. It's a tough battle. The genie's out of the bottle.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board?
Thanks
Thank you
again.
very much, Joe.
Mhm.
Next appearance is Jim Olson, Madison, speaking on 232 petitioners on the Home Lake Rule petition filed in February 9th, 2024 on invasives. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Deputy Secretary Little, members of the board. I've been before you many times before, and I'm speaking on behalf of 232 petitioners. Now, frankly, if we would have tried, we could have had thousands of petitioners. All it takes is 5 to get the matter before the DNR, and that's what, but we have 232. All of these people are beneficiaries of the public trust doctrine, of which you have a responsibility as trustees to protect. And I'm not going to tell you about all of the members of them, but I'm going to tell you about one. His name is Carl Waterway. And many of you know Carl Waterway. He worked for DNR for 34 years. He had 83 publications and had been cited 4,884 times. He was a research scientist at the DNR. He has a PhD in limnology, and he's a fellow with the UW Center for Limnology. And I'm very proud to say he's one of our petitioners, and he's been helpful in this all along. Now, I'm here today to talk about quagga mussels. And I first heard of quagga mussels a number of years ago when I read the New York Times bestseller by Dan Egan called The Death and Life of the Great Lakes. And in there, he writes about various problems. I want to quote from page 107. He says, now it turns out the lakes are suffering a second wave of invasions that make solving the lamprey and alewife infestation seem easy. This time, there is no obvious remedy because the food chain is being attacked at its most vulnerable point, at the bottom. He then launches into the next chapter entitled Noxious Cargo, the invasion of zebra and quagga mussels. And basically the conclusion is zebra mussels are a nuisance. Quagga mussels are a disaster. He says, and this is from page 123, the public can comprehend the devastation of a catastrophic wildfire that torches vast stands of trees and leaves a scorched forest floor littered with wildlife carcasses and turns dancing streams into oozes of mud and ash. But forests grow back. The quagga mussel destruction is so profound, it's hard to fathom. Now, although both quagga and zebra mussels habitate the same area, quagga mussels outperform zebra mussels, and soon they take over. Now, as you probably know, quagga mussels have been discovered in Lake Geneva. They've now come to an inland lake. The goals of the Wisconsin, your goal is to prevent the spread. Well, my time is up. I could go on, but I'll tell you this. One quagga mussel will produce 1 million eggs in a year. They just take over. You've got to do something. We can't wait any longer. You are the agency. The department is the agency to deal with this. You have regulations, and we're asking by this petition that you amend the regulation, making an emergency regulation to enforce the home lake rule. My time is up, but I'd be delighted to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jim. Other questions from the board?
Similar to the cormorants, can we get a follow-up on the quagga mussel, how we're addressing the spread?
Mussels, sure.
Just a,
I'd be willing to provide you with much information on quagga mussels.
I'm more specific to how the department's responding to what you said about Lake Geneva.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're always welcome, you're welcome to have public input, but my question was more specific to your point about them already being discovered in an inland lake.
Yeah, and apparently they've been there 2 to 3 years. So we have no idea how many more lakes are already infested with quagga mussels.
Very, very serious threat and a long line of invasive impacts, but this one really packs a punch and it's having substantial impact.
Yeah,
Out in Lake Michigan.
Something must be done.
Thank you, Jim. Next appearance is a virtual appearance, Carol Phillips, Presque Isle, speaking on wake surfing. Carol, are you with us?
Yeah, hi. Thank you all. I'm Carol Phillips. I live in Presque Isle in Vilas County in the North Woods. I agree with others about wake boat problems, especially what Jim Olson just said about needing this emergency order. Quagga mussels can even live in lakes with soft bottoms, not just hard bottoms like zebra mussels. So it's a really big concern. Quaggas, zebras, and spiny water fleas can upset the entire food web, destroying fisheries. They can cause algae blooms and set off a chain of events that can even result in loon and eagle deaths from botulism. Vilas County doesn't have farming and not much industry. We rely on tourism. The muskie capital of the world is here. Fishermen come from all over for that prize fish, and of course the walleye too. The game fish can't eat quagga mussel. Only a few fish can, like carp. What happens to our local economy if we have to change our name to the carp capital of the world? Fishermen are especially important in the spring and fall. They keep the restaurants, motels, and other businesses open until the next summer. Snowmobiles help in the winter, except last winter we had no snow, but we did have ice fishermen. We can't afford to lose our fisheries to invasives. But we can't afford the type of decontamination systems that are needed to decontaminate wake boat ballast systems either. We're a small town with more than a dozen public landings. Volunteers here do the DNR's Clean Boats, Clean Waters program, and we're trying to find affordable decontamination systems for each landing. On McKenzie Lake in Burnett County, they have a giant sign showing how to decontaminate most boats and how to get the cooling water out of most motors. And there are hand tools and sprayers with decontaminating solution. It's a simple, affordable system, and it can handle most pathways for invasives, but it does absolutely nothing for the single biggest threat, wake boat ballast systems coming from all over the Midwest. Those complex systems are a spaghetti bowl of piping, valves, pumps, and big tanks. They can't be inspected because they're inaccessible under the floor, and the manufacturers know they can't drain, but do nothing. To decontaminate, you need a huge amount of hot water and a trained operator. Last time, someone said you just hook up a hose and push a button. The devil's in the details on that. The frustrating thing is, there are already state laws requiring that water be completely drained, but the state does not enforce their own laws. The economic survival of towns like mine depends on pristine lakes with healthy fisheries. We need help, and we need it now. In particular, please do the home lake rule and do it soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Any questions from the board? Thank you very much, Carol. Next appearance is Richard Phillips, Presque Isle, also speaking on wake surfing.
Thank you. My name is
Morning,
Richard Phillips.
Welcome.
Good morning. I volunteer extensively across Wisconsin, providing education regarding the safety and environmental problems of wake surfing. I watched your last meeting and noted a presentation that touched on local ordinances to regulate wake surfing. I felt it would be helpful if I provided a bit of supplemental information. The number of Wisconsin towns with enhanced wake ordinances is now 31. 16 of those 31 were enacted just this year. There are several dozen more towns where citizen groups are now working with their town boards to consider ordinances for their towns. There's great concern by lake advocates that it's unlikely that there will be meaningful state regulation in the next several years, or that if there is state legislation, it'll be weak. It motivates towns to protect their own lakes. I occasionally hear the wake surf industry allege there's a patchwork of ordinances and a patchwork of different impacts. This is wrong. Towns have coalesced on a common pattern for regulation. 21 of the last 21 ordinances all prohibit wake surfing outright. Virtually all ordinances now coming into effect and in progress are based on this common template. But the template does not ban wake surf boats. It expressly states that surf boats may be used for skiing, tubing, and other activities, provided the ballast tanks or wake-enhancing fins are not deployed, and that the boat is not continuously plowing at transition speed. Wake surfing advocates argue they have a right guaranteed by Wisconsin's public trust doctrine to wake surf on any lake open to other power boating. But a December 2023 opinion of the Wisconsin Legislative Council, in response to a query from State Senator Mary Filskowski, says that Wisconsin's public trust doctrine does not guarantee a right to wake surf, and it is unlikely that any challenge under the doctrine would succeed. It's common for wake surf boat owners to threaten to sue if their town enacts any ordinance restricting wake surfing. So far, there are 31 towns with ordinances in place, and there has not been a single suit filed. This goes back to the very first ordinance in Wisconsin passed by Mequon in 2009, 15 years ago. I've heard it said that some towns have rescinded their ordinance. The real story is very different. It's true that on the Wapaka chain, one town passed then rescinded their ordinance. But the purpose was to better allow coordination with their neighboring town because one lake on the chain was shared by two towns. The town that rescinded its ordinance then reinstated it, and the neighboring town passed a parallel ordinance so that where there was originally one town protecting some lakes on the chain, the final result was that the two towns each passed an ordinance, and now the entire famous Wapaka chain of lakes is fully protected from wake surfing. Last point, enforcement. Wake surfing advocates often argue that the enforcement of wake surfing regulations is impossible. The reality is that with only very rare exceptions, when a town passes an ordinance, wake surfing stops. The ordinances are self-enforcing. There's no reason to suppose that wake surfers are any less attentive to obeying the law than any other class of boater. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard, for that update. Questions from the board? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next appearance is John Richter, Sainer, Plum Lake Association on wake surfing. Welcome, John.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I am John Richter. I'm chairman of Plum Lake Association in Vilas County, and I'm here speaking on behalf of Plum Lake on the issue of wake surfing. The spread of damaging invertebrates in our lakes by transfer of water is increasing. While all boats must drain all water by Wisconsin regulations, wake boats have been given a free pass. This is compounded by damage to the lake habitat where wake surf boat prop wash destroys aquatic plant communities and deposits smothering silt on fish beds and growing plants. The loss of traditional forms of recreation, such as fishing and the dangerous impact on other boating, sailing, and water sport activities could cripple the economic driver of the northern economy, where tourism is the largest segment and virtually impacts all other segments. Wake surfing has negatively affected nearly all other lake users and has become a real threat. We now question why we are not being protected by the public trust doctrine, part of the Wisconsin Constitution, that safeguards the use of all of our lakes for all citizens. Wake surfing and the use of ballast are a clear violation of the public trust doctrine, depriving all others of safe use of our lakes and the ability to protect our lakes from damage and destruction. Wisconsin Legislative Council has reviewed wake surfing and opined that the banning the activity, and in fact banning the boats, would not be a violation of the public trust doctrine. A copy of that opinion is attached to my remarks. Quagga mussel discovery on Geneva Lake has accelerated the concern. If it spreads to the north and blankets the bottoms of our lakes, as it has in Lake Michigan, the economy of northern Wisconsin will suffer a devastating blow. The boat manufacturers and their lawyers can read Wisconsin law, and they've ignored it. They continue to build and sell boats in Wisconsin that violate Wisconsin law. It is past time to stop this activity until these boats can be brought into compliance at the industry's expense and until regulations can be put in place to protect other lake users from harm and the lake environment from permanent damage. Time is of the essence. We ask that you support the immediate issuance of an emergency order to stop the use of ballast, to give the industry the coming winter to create decontamination procedures for their boats and decontamination stations for that purpose. By the spring of 2025, no wake surf boat should ever again enter a Wisconsin lake without the assurance that it's been completely decontaminated. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, John. Questions from the board? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our last appearance under open forum is a virtual one. Lori Grosskopf, Tomahawk, speaking about wolves. Lori,
Hello,
are you with
Bill.
us?
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Bill, can you hear me?
Oh, I can now. We've had a little trouble with audio, so bear with.
Okay. We live up here in the boonies, so it's been difficult sometimes to use Zoom, but I have two jobs, so I could not travel down there today. I'm here to talk about the wolf and need for a wolf advisory committee on the part of the DNR. We had one of those committees, sometimes two, during past years up until December of 2014, when wolves were relisted for the umpteenth millionth time. And the Walker administration decided that we would no longer have a wolf advisory committee. I was contacted by Randy Johnson, having been a former member of a number of these committees, that they would be implementing a wolf advisory committee again in January or February. And so far, we've heard no progress on that. We really need to be talking to each other and gathering input from the agricultural sector, the hunting sector, the tourist sector, and all the other entities that are interested in this topic, because not talking to each other may be easier for the DNR, but it's not at all easy for us that are actually living this out in the boondocks. So far, there's 89 conflicts on the list. I've been sending those to the board. I hope you're getting them. And I'm trying to give you a sense of the enormity of the problem that we have with wolves. And each of these incidents is a very traumatic and psychologically damaging and socially damaging occurrence for towns, not just that individual farm or that individual hunter, but it goes far beyond to their entire social network. We've created a program where wolves are out of control. The DNR has done very little, if nothing, to fight in the court cases to keep us delisted. In fact, for the last relisting for the circuit court, the DNR did absolutely nothing, didn't even send a written brief like they had for the previous one in 2014. So I think we need to get really active in this, get the wolves delisted. We do need to manage these animals, and I hope that we've got almost 23% of the counties have had confirmed or probable conflicts this year. If you add the 29 unconfirmed cases, which could have been wolves, but they just didn't have enough evidence to show it was wolves, that makes 35% of the counties already having experienced a conflict of one sort or another. And 89 is 9 more than last year's total, and we're moving up towards being in the top 5 years for conflicts. This is not good PR for the wolves themselves, and the wolves need to be controlled to a responsible level. You guys get my phone number. Feel free to call me. Please call before 7. I go to bed really early and I get up really early if you want to talk some more about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Your messages are getting through, and there's certainly a lot of wolf activity this year. Appreciate your comments. Any questions from the board? Okay. That's it for item 5, open forum. Thanks to everybody for your comments and your contributions, and those that made the trip here to appear before the board. Appreciate your advice very much. We'll move back to the agenda. And we will pick up with item 4F, which is a scope statement. Request that the board approve the statement of scope for Board Order LE-5-24 and conditionally approve the public hearing notice for Board Order LE-5-24 and notice of submittal of proposed rules to the Legislative Council Rules Clearinghouse for proposed rules affecting Chapter NR 64 related to all-terrain vehicles. Lieutenant Jacob Holtzclaw, Off-Highway Vehicle Administrator. Welcome, Jacob.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Smith, fellow board members, and Deputy Secretary Little. Appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I just want to cover the next step, which would basically be the approval of our scope statement. And so as you can see in this chart, under today's action, request approval of the statement of scope for Board Order LE-05-24. About a month ago, we did have our first public hearing. This hearing was held virtually. We had one attendee from the public representing the Wisconsin ATV Association. They provided positive feedback on this statement of scope, as in they wanted to move forward with the process. They wanted us to update NR 64. And so that's where we are this morning at the approval of the statement of scope. Just a little bit of history here. NR 64 covers all-terrain vehicle laws. Basically, working to update this code would modernize outdated provisions of NR 64. Currently, like I said, it only touches all-terrain vehicles, otherwise known as ATVs. It does not mention utility terrain vehicles, otherwise known as UTVs. So modernizing this code would make it consistent with state law under Chapter 23.33. The last time this code was touched was approximately 12 years ago. So it's been quite some time since we've looked at this. As you probably know, over the last 10, 12 years, there's been a lot of activity, a lot of increase in activity with ATVs and UTVs around the state. It's become a very popular pastime, very popular sport. And so we just want to kind of keep up with the times and make sure that we are addressing the issues that we can. Currently, it does not address UTVs. They came to the market since the code was created back in 1986. 1986 is when the first ATV laws came into being for the state of Wisconsin. Updating this chapter will help provide much needed clarity for the general public and law enforcement. And I would be willing to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jacob. Any questions, Robin?
I'm just wondering if you're going to have some kind of an advisory group that is going to be, you're going to be working with on this?
Yeah, great question. Yes, our plan is to work with our partners that we work with on other issues, legislative issues. We're going to work with customer service staff, grant staff, law enforcement, trying to kind of get that full scope so that we can work with all the interested parties.
Thank you.
Other questions? Hearing none, we got a motion.
I'll move approval on the scope statement as the first step.
Marcy moves approval. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Patty seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
Next item is 4G, presentation of the 2023 Shikar Safari Club International Wildlife Officer of the Year Award. Casey Krieger, Chief Conservation Warden. Welcome, Casey.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, Chair Smith, Deputy Secretary Stephen Little, as well as the rest of the members of the Natural Resources Board. My name is Casey Krieger. I am the Chief Conservation Warden, as well as the Division Administrator for the Division of Public Safety and Resource Protection. Really honored and pleased to be here today to put specific honor on Lieutenant Chris Shea with the Shikar Safari International Wildlife Officer of the Year Award winner. I'd like to talk a little bit about Lieutenant Shea. Lieutenant Shea is the leader and role model of the high-performing Lake Winnebago Warden team. I often think there must be two of them because every time we turn the corner, he's engaged and seems to be everywhere. He acts fast when investigating complaints concerning fish, game, ATVs, UTVs, snowmobiles, trapping, and environmental laws. Lieutenant Shea's service territory reaches well into the High Cliff State Park area, where he has led drug and other law enforcement efforts in response to concerns and complaints. He's also organized multi-agency work initiatives, group patrols, and collaborated well with internal and external partners such as our own state parks, the County District Attorney's Office, judges, Calumet County Sheriff's Office, the Wisconsin State Patrol, as well as the Fox Valley Metro Drug Unit. Partnerships are huge with Lieutenant Shea as he walks the talk about being stronger together than standing alone. If you've never met Lieutenant Shea, but think you've maybe seen him, it could have been during the annual sturgeon spearfishing season. He does a ton of media interviews and outreach as he leads our law enforcement efforts to keep the 10,000 plus spearers safe for this unique Wisconsin tradition that can easily stretch more than several weeks. He does this while maintaining his partnerships with local agencies, fishing clubs, and businesses in the Lake Winnebago area. If not sturgeon spearing, perhaps you maybe saw his involvement in the Midwest's largest ice fishing tournament here in the state of Wisconsin, Battle of the Bago. Lieutenant Shea leads our warden teams for that too and does a lot of media outreach. Lieutenant Shea is active in his community, participating in outreach events such as Run with a Cop, charitable efforts including the Salvation Army's Ring the Bell, and giving presentations to numerous outdoor user groups. Lieutenant Shea is also an incredible resource for other wardens and staff and is often sought out for his insight and guidance on the multitude of issues that he is an expert on. He helps train wardens to ensure high quality public service. He soon will take his leadership skills to the Mississippi River Warden team on the other side of our state. We in the division are very proud of Chris, and I'm pleased to say these are some of the many reasons Chris is the Shikar Safari International Wildlife Officer of the Year. Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you to the board, Secretary's office. Thank you to my family. Thank you to my team members, future team members. Thank you to Ben Trumbull, my supervisor, for nominating me for this award. It's pretty special, so really appreciate it. I couldn't do this by myself. It takes a big team, takes a family, takes teammates, takes mentors. So really appreciate all the help from everybody with this. Thank you very much for the honor. I appreciate it.
Congratulations, Christopher. Very well deserved. I think we have the formality of doing a motion from the board to acknowledge this honor. So if someone would like to make a motion.
I'd like to move the recipient, Lieutenant Chris Shea, be recognized with the International Wildlife Officer of the Year Award, and welcome to the West Coast of Wisconsin.
Okay, we got a motion to approve.
I would
Is there a
second
second? Robin seconds.
And the
Any more-
welcoming to the western part of the state.
Any more comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay, next item is item 4H, acknowledgement of donation. The Natural Resources Foundation of Wisconsin plans to donate $38,000. This donation will be used to support the state forest through funding a variety of programs and projects. We have David Clutter, registered to appear, Executive Director of the Natural Resources Foundation. David, I see on the screen.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Deputy Secretary Little, and members of the Natural Resources Board. Thanks very much for providing me the opportunity to address you today. Yes, my name is Dave Clutter, and I serve as Executive Director with the Natural Resources Foundation of Wisconsin. And on behalf of the foundation, we are very pleased to contribute $38,000 to enhance community connections at Havenwood State Forest in the city of Milwaukee. And this is an incredibly, unique property and project. And I just wanted to say a few words about it. Haven Woods is an extremely valuable resource for Milwaukee's youth and community. And this donation will directly support natural resource education programming, things like updated signage, supplies, field trips for 1,000 students. In addition, it'll fund pollinator habitat restoration through the Naturalist Backyard Project, an initiative that reconnects people with nature by transforming spaces into thriving habitats. And we're particularly excited about how this project will engage urban youth. Haven Woods is an oasis in an urban landscape. And our hope is that through field trips and hands-on educational programming, more young people will discover the beauty and importance of Wisconsin's natural spaces. In an increasingly urbanized world, these opportunities are critical for fostering a lifelong connection to nature and instilling a sense of stewardship in the next generation. So this project not only benefits the students who participate in the programming, but also strengthens the fabric of the community by creating access to green spaces that promote environmental awareness and action. By supporting Haven Woods, we're also helping to ensure that all children and adults, regardless of where they live, that they can have meaningful experiences in nature, learn about the importance of conservation, and ultimately develop an understanding of how public lands contribute to our shared quality of life here in Wisconsin. Our longstanding partnership with Wisconsin DNR over the years reflects the foundation's commitment to public land management and environmental education, and we are proud to invest in projects that bridge the gap between communities and natural spaces like Haven Woods. Since our founding in 1986, the Natural Resources Foundation of Wisconsin has provided roughly $7.7 million in funding to support the DNR for public land management, property development, and environmental education throughout the state. And we only aim to increase the pace and levels of funding to the DNR and our conservation partners in the coming years. So thank you again for the opportunity to share a few thoughts this morning. And we look forward to continuing this to support these important efforts at Haven Woods, as well as other DNR projects and public lands over time. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Any questions or comments from the board?
I just want to express appreciation. I think that all of us are know the importance from a mental health perspective of allowing people to have access to green spaces, open spaces, and the importance, especially for folks who may not have easy access to that. So it's really, really important in the more urban areas that these kinds of activities are supported, and thank you for your vision for being able to help contribute to that.
Our pleasure, of course. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Questions, comments? I have one, David. Just acknowledge that the foundation has been a wonderful partner to the department. There's been regular flow of money and resources to various projects and programs. And I just appreciate very much you taking the time to appear and make the personal connection occasionally. We do a lot more business than when we see you, but it's certainly nice to see you every once in a while. And the foundation has been just a great asset in terms of raising money, in terms of managing money in the form of endowments, and provides a wonderful service, not only to department and programs, but to citizens of the state and our conservation partners as really a point of coordination and efficiency for raising money for conservation. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Smith.
Okay, move on to item 6, information items. 6A, summary of the department's 2025 and 27 biennial budget, including the operating budget, environmental improvement fund, and capital development budget. We have Maggie Hutter from Management and Budget Director, and Terry Bay, Facilities and Lands Bureau Director. You guys want to choreograph your appearance? Looks like you're up first, Terry. Welcome. Oh, you're right. Excuse me for a moment. We do need a motion on that donation from the foundation. Slid right by that. Thank you, Marcy.
I'd make a motion to acknowledge the donation from the Natural Resources Foundation to the State Forest programs, specifically the Haven Woods Milwaukee projects.
We have a motion to approve the donation. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Have a second from Deb. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks for the catch, Marcy.
Well, it was.
Okay, we'll move on to item
Same.
6A, discussion of the biennial budget. I guess, Maggie, you've decided you're going to go first. All right, welcome.
Hello, Chair Smith, Deputy Secretary Little, members of the board. My name is Maggie Hutter. I'm the agency's Management and Budget Director.
Pull that mic real close. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to discuss our September operating budget request. So here's an overview timeline of our biennial budget. So we're at the first dot right there. So we just submitted at the in the middle of September our budget request to the governor and to the Department of Administration. Our September budget is largely just a cost to continue housekeeping type document. So there's no big policy changes. All of the increases or decreases in funding that we see are of housekeeping nature, really. Then in January or February, the governor will submit his executive budget to the legislature. And this is generally where we first start to see new policy changes, new funding items. Then March through June, the Joint Finance Committee will hold hearings and build the legislature's budget. They start with the governor's budget and they can add, modify, delete items from the governor's budget to pull together a new document. And then in June 2025, the Assembly and Senate will need to approve a final budget bill, which will then be submitted to the governor. Our goal, as always, is to have a new budget in place by July 1, as that's when the fiscal year turns over. This is just an overall top-level summary of our biennial budget. I'm looking at the total down at the bottom. So for the biennium, we have a budget of about $1.2 billion. That's our base. And then our total request is $1.229 billion. So $24 million increase, about 2%. And the majority of those changes are seen in our standard budget adjustments, which are housekeeping items that the Department of Administration largely determines for us. And this is just an overall summary of our budget by fund source. So as you can see, the Conservation Fund makes up nearly 50% of our budget. So this includes things like the Fish and Wildlife account, the forestry account, all of our rec vehicle spending. Then GPR is the next largest, followed by federal funding, the environmental fund, and some other smaller funding sources. This is a summary of our positions in the budget. So as you can see in our adjusted base, we have 2,539.92 positions, but our total budget request is actually for less than that. We're eliminating 46 positions in the budget. This is something we always knew was going to happen. These are federal project positions that by statute are only allowed to exist for 4 years. These are project positions that we got as a result of the bipartisan infrastructure law, which we began implementing in 2022. So 4 years out from that is 2026, which is in the middle of the next biennium. So those positions expire. This is not something we're concerned about. When we got the positions, we always knew they would be gone at this point in time. So next are actual requests that you'll see in our budget. We have bonding requests that are repeat budget items. Every 2 years, pretty much, we ask for similar bonding items, including this year, 9 million in contaminated sediment bonding. So this is to clean up contaminated sediments in the St. Louis River area of concern. This is just our current priority project for contaminated sediment. And this $9 million is expected to leverage $30 million in federal funding. Next, we have the targeted runoff management and notice of discharge bonding. We're requesting $10 million for this program. And this helps with livestock operations meeting their pollution control requirements. Next, we have urban non-point source and municipal flood control bonding. This is $11 million, and it helps us fund projects to address runoff in urbanized areas. And finally, we have our municipal dam repair bonding program. We're asking for $10 million in additional authority, and this is to repair, reconstruct, and remove dams throughout the state. Next, we have a couple statutory language proposals. The most notable is we're asking for a reauthorization of the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Program. We're requesting $100 million per year for this program for the next 10 years. And this would be beginning in 2030 or 2026, as that's when the current program expires. To go along with that request, we're asking for a correction to the current stewardship program. And the way the current stewardship program is working, we're funding some of our subprograms with forestry cash. And in order to use this forestry cash, we have to give it to the Department of Administration and then spend it through DOA. But there's no way to get any unspent money back. So we're giving them $8 million a year, and we might not spend it all, but then it sits there in limbo. So we're just asking that any money that goes unspent, they put back in the forestry account so it can be reappropriated for a different purpose. Next, we have 3 appropriations that we're asking to change the language on. And they're just little changes. To start, we have a parks appropriation that we use for education and interpretive fees. Our state forests also have education and interpretive programming, so we just want to include them in this appropriation. Second, we have a stormwater appropriation that receives permit fees, but the program isn't allowed to spend all of the permit fees that they receive. So we are asking to change the appropriation so if they receive the fees, they can spend that money. Right now, they're capped by a number in statute. And then finally, our external services program has a general operations appropriation, but it doesn't specify that they can use that funding for loan administration. We would just like it to be specified because such a big part of what external services does is the clean water program and the safe drinking water loan program. They administer those loans. So we just want to clarify that. Next, we have a couple of cost to continue supply line requests. First, we're asking for a little under $200,000 in spending authority to cover increased fish food costs, freight costs for our hatcheries, and then also to fund more creel surveys in the ceded territories. Next, we're asking for an additional $345,000 to cover increasing supply line needs in our state park systems. As you know, our park systems have seen significant increases in visitors, which means we have to buy more toilet paper, more paper towels, do more trail maintenance. So we're just asking for a little more funding for that. Then we're asking for additional funding for our wardens' Toughbook computers. These have to be replaced periodically, and the costs have gone up. So we need additional funding to help cover those routine replacement costs, as well as the cellular plans that they operate on. Next, we have $573,000 that we're requesting for fire suppression equipment. This includes maintaining all of the radios that our forestry crews use, procuring or fabricating the vehicles that are used in fire suppression. That includes some UTVs that either need maintenance or replacement. And we also would like to modernize and standardize the safety equipment and training and maintenance for some of our aircraft. And then this will also be used to fund some private sector contracts that we use to suppress fires prior to our ground crews being able to arrive. Next, I have $348,000 for some IT system maintenance and IT field equipment for our environmental management division. A lot of our IT systems are maintained by contractors, and as contractor costs go up, we just lose ability to pay their fees as inflation occurs. And then $334,900, again, more contractors to maintain systems. This is for the water e-permitting system, which operates in our external services division and maintains over 100 types of permits. And it's something that the public, the agency, feds all use to go in and track some of our water permitting. Next, we're requesting $350,000 to maintain and pay licensing fees for our new e-grant system. This is a system that the department is currently building. We operate over 60 grant programs, and a lot of them are kind of in different places on the internet, and we would like to pull those all together. We're using current funds to build this new system, but the licensing, the maintenance will have ongoing costs. So we're asking for additional funding to pay for that. And then property maintenance and repair funding. After I'm done, Terry's going to come up and talk about all the capital projects. We have to pay some of the engineering and construction costs out of our operating budget. So we're asking for an increase to help fund that. All right. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions from the board?
Yep.
Who wants to start?
Can we go back to the stewardship slide, please? Is that, help my memory, is that what has been asked historically in the stewardship fund?
For the 100 million a year?
Yes.
It is not. In the past, we've generally had just normal cost to continue, same bonding amount requests. So in the recent past, that's been 33.25 million per year.
Sorry, 33?
0.25, yes.
Okay. One, two more. So for a biennium budget, we can make a request for 100 million per year for another 10 years.
Yes, so this, we're not asking for cash, and bonding requests can be made for longer periods of time because it's just written in statute. So it would basically say $100 million per year until 2036.
Okay. Thank you. And then the one to add the forestry education, there was a slide to that. Yesterday, we saw at Mead that the wildlife areas also provide education. So the state forests are now eligible. Were the wildlife areas already eligible for that? Do we know?
So this does not, no, wildlife is generally budgeted separately from our state parks and forests. So theirs would come from a different funding source. So it would be probably a different appropriation or a different category within that appropriation.
Okay, so the concern would be that we have the same amount of money, but now we're spreading it out to a larger number of programs, correct? So would we be concerned that the numbers for that are going to go down per program?
So part of this, the state forests are already providing the interpretive programming. We just want them to be included in this appropriation where the revenues go and are expended from. So it's just centralizing for our benefit.
Okay, so it's, you know what I mean, that
Yes,
now
I
there
know
would
exactly
be,
what you mean. If we have a flat fee or if we have a flat number and it's going to one place, but now we're going to two places, does that make a difference is what you're asking?
right?
Yeah, and no, we are not concerned about that. This is something that will make things administratively easier for us when funding these programs.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Robin?
So I just want to piggyback on Marcy's comment. This stewardship funding is basically authorizing the stewardship program to continue for the next 10 years. So this is like the big, I mean, does it not end or has it ended? Like
So it is currently scheduled to end in 2026 at the current funding levels.
okay, so this is a big ask
This
in
is-
terms of, you know, making this more of a long-term investment for the state and not having uncertainties into the future.
Yes.
Okay. And then the money for the fisheries program, is that gonna be sufficient so that we don't have like what happened in the western part of the state with the shortfall of budget of money for what they would normally do for releasing fish?
Yeah, this will definitely be a big help to that. So our fish food costs have increased about 200%, I believe, over the past 10 to 15 years. And this will cover a lot of those costs. I know when we ran the math for the inability to fund the cooperators this year, we were off by about $40,000 is what it came down to. So this does go above and beyond that. That said, we are looking at a broader fix to the Fish and Wildlife account to help make sure that we don't run into those problems and that we have this sustainable funding source.
Can I just add on to that question a little bit about the conservation fund or Fish and Wildlife account? And you're looking for solutions there, sustainable funding source. So you're going to try and increase the revenue that's projected into the fund rather than making budget cuts to balance the budget another 15 million lower.
So yeah, in order to balance the budget, we either have to reduce spending or increase revenues or a combination of both. And we will be working with the governor's office through the fall and winter to assess all of the options within there. What are different ways to increase revenues? What are different ways to reduce spending? See what we come up with. And we will work with them to potentially have something in the governor's budget to help address this ongoing issue.
I know we're very early in the process and this is just a kind of a general framework for budget discussions, but one thing I'd ask for your advice on is, at what point would it be timely to schedule an update for the board as some of these more detailed decisions are made and solutions are being discussed?
Yeah, so there are probably two different benchmarks for which we could schedule an update. So the governor's budget will come out either in late January or maybe into February. When the governor's budget comes out, we'll know a lot more about the different options that are on the table. So we could provide an update either in February or March about that. Or if you wanted to wait for an update when there's a final budget enacted, that should be end of June into July, and we could provide an update then. So either of those would be definitely feasible options.
I don't know what the preference of the board is. I would think we'd want an update sometime around the governor's budget when things are still in negotiation and fluid.
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely do that.
If there's any way that we can assist and help, we'd be in a position to do that.
Sure.
Even could we just tentatively schedule something for February, might be January or March, but whenever it's timely to get an update on it.
Absolutely, we will coordinate to ensure that after the governor's budget is announced, that we come back to the board with a briefing on specifically the Fish and Wildlife account, but also there are other key budget decision items that are impacting the department. We could certainly share that as well.
Yeah, good to see the references both to the Conservation Fund, Fish and Wildlife, and also the stewardship program. We hear a lot from the public on both of those. There's a lot of interest in looking for solutions there. Other questions from the board? Patty?
Positions from federal dollars.
Yeah.
Were those all special projects? Are they complete? Or are they just done?
So these are largely related to the state revolving loan funds. So the Clean Water Fund and Safe Drinking Water Fund. Through the bipartisan infrastructure law, we have received significant additional funding, and administering that funding takes extra people. This was a 5-year bipartisan infrastructure law. So we're only getting additional funding for 5 years. At the end of that 5 years, we won't have the need for the additional staff as much anymore.
But all the projects that they were working on are complete and
Not now, we're in the middle now,
We're
but
in the middle.
by the end of
okay.
the positions, yeah.
Other questions?
I
Robin?
just have one more. With respect to the Clean Water Fund and Safe Drinking Water Loan Program, I thought I had heard that as demand has grown, that they might be limited on their bonding authority. Could you just describe whether or not this budget addresses that?
Yeah, so you are very correct. We have seen more demand in this program than we really ever have before. And we're actually looking at the first round of funding where we probably don't have enough money to provide everybody with loans that's requested them. So we work with the Department of Administration to administer this program. Their capital finance office does a lot of the financing and helping us figure out how much money we have to administer. And with the Department of Administration, we'll be requesting over $700 million in additional bonding authority. This is all revenue bonding. So no additional GPR supported bonding is being asked for. But yeah, we're asking for a pretty significant commitment from the state to help us fund all of these water related projects that
But
communities
that
want
comes
to do.
through DOA.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I have one in general. Just looking at the general budget proposal, it includes a across the board 2% increase. And yet inflation's been running at a higher level than that for a number of years. It's coming down, thank goodness, but nevertheless, how do you include and update, I guess, the effects of inflation in reducing the spending power of the numbers in this budget?
Yeah, so it's definitely something we struggle with. There is no mechanism for me to just say, well, inflation's been at 6%, so I need a 6% increase. That would be a dream. But we will work with the governor's office through the fall and winter on additional funding that needs to be allocated for the department to continue our work. It's really a long ongoing process, and we'll have those discussions with the governor, and then after the governor's budget is released with legislators to help get this across the finish line. But yeah, it's definitely a problem.
A related issue to the effects of inflation. Don't need an answer for it now, but it's a concern, I guess, that I'd like to track through the budget process. And that is, do we remain competitive as a hiring agency, as an authority? Are the salaries that we can offer our employees competitive for retaining the quality and the tenure, I guess, of the employees that we have, or are we expressing more turnover and less competition for some of the positions? I hear things anecdotally, but I really can't paint the big picture. And I guess I'd like a comfortable feeling that we're aware of that, we're tracking it, and we're addressing it.
Yeah, and we are definitely aware that employee compensation is something we need to pay attention to, right? It's beneficial to us to retain employees versus having a high turnover rate. And there is a process kind of parallel to the budget where we work with DOA. They handle most of the human resources aspects for the entire state. We work with them to identify places where pay is not competitive to see if we can make adjustments in the pay plan and fund them through the budget to help us with that. But it's definitely an ongoing process. Yeah, and we work as best we can with DOA and with our division administrators to identify those issues to resolve them.
Thank you. Other questions? I guess that's it, Maggie, for now, and we're ready for capital budgetary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, members of the board, Secretary Smith and Deputy Secretary Little. I'm Terry Bay. I'm the Bureau Director for Facilities and Lands. The capital budget provides the department the funding necessary for maintaining and improving public access, maintaining public recreational facilities, and maintaining the overall infrastructure of DNR-owned lands. It supports the entire DNR portfolio of capital assets, including all structures, facilities, roadways, trails, bridges, and water control structures. For this budget, the department will be requesting $505 million for capital development projects to address the growing backlog of deferred maintenance issues and provide suitable and safe infrastructure at our department properties. This morning, I'm going to go through a brief outline of how project requests are reviewed and prioritized for consideration into this budget, then review how the projects are grouped into the necessary state funding categories, and finally take a quick look at some of the capital development projects that have been recently completed. The development of this budget is a continuous process that is a cooperative prioritization of project needs with department programs and how those projects support the overall department initiatives. Projects are selected for inclusion into the capital budget by prioritizing projects into these 4 categories listed in order of importance. Priority A projects address health, safety, security, and compliance. Priority B projects are repair and maintenance. Priority C projects enhance existing facilities, and lowest priority, priority D, are new construction. Priority A projects addressing health and safety, security and compliance concerns, and address initiatives such as clean water, improving wastewater, water systems, replacement of all toilets, obviously protecting our groundwater systems, life safety improvements, which could include life safety improvements at our operational hatcheries for fisheries or for wildlife. And finally, in this category of projects, addresses compliance issues with some of the impoundment structures on DNR-owned lands. If priority A projects are not addressed, our concern is that not all the amenities at our properties will be open to the public. For example, if we don't address a road concern or a trail concern, that trail or road may not be open. Additionally, if we don't address the priority A concerns, we're concerned about our operational resources to maintain that amenity to be open and remain open to the public. B projects are repair and maintenance projects. These projects are directed at protecting our existing assets, such as our facilities or our infrastructure, or help in maintaining our services. This is by far the largest portion of our budget. The types of projects that fall into this category are boat launches, dam repairs, roads, bridges, facility repairs, hatchery repairs, facility repairs, envelopes, roofs, things like that. C projects enhance an existing asset that we have. Might be the extension of a road, a new road, additions or expansions to our current facilities. And finally, D, I think, is self-explanatory. Those are new facilities that we currently don't have. It'd be new square footage. Once we get all the projects categorized, we then put them into the funding categories that are mandated by the state. We have 334 total projects in this budget request. 26 of them are what's considered major projects. A major project under the guidelines from DOA are any projects that are over $3 million in cost or add more than 500 square feet of new square footage. DOA requests these projects be separately enumerated in the budget and approved by the legislature. I have an example up here. This is a ranger station. It was built and completed. This would have been a major project. It was separately enumerated at new square footage. It was over $3 million. That'd be an example of a major project. Next on the list, we have 73 minor projects. Minor projects are categorized and valued between $300,000 and $3 million. On the top left is an example of a shoreline armoring project I'll talk about a little later too at Harrington State Beach. This would be an example of a minor project. And finally, the bulk of it is 235 small projects. These projects are valued at less than $300,000. Example of it is accessible fishing pier that was installed at Copper Falls State Park there on the bottom left. Overall, the funding request for capital project development projects will be $488 million of state funds and approximately $6 million in non-state funds. The non-state funds would be gifts, grants, and federal dollars. And I just want to mention that Our Land and Water Conservation Fund from the federal government, due to the efforts of all our grant staff, has increased $3 million in this budget due to all their efforts in showing how much need there is in the state of Wisconsin and demonstrating to the feds how we use it. This slide summarizes how the capital development funding fits within the prioritization categories. As you can see here, after addressing health and safety priorities, the department focuses on protecting and maintaining our current facility and infrastructures through the maintenance and repair category. Just want to take a quick moment to kind of go through some projects that were recently completed. Up on the top left, there is a replacement of a boat launch at Twin Valley at Governor Dodge State Park. Beautiful boat launch with a pier addition. This was actually a minor project because it came in at a little less than $500,000. On the top right there was a priority A project, and in the minor category is a new toilet shower building at Mirror Lake State Park. I just want to mention the department has really evolved in the toilet shower building development. We've increased accessibility to our toilet shower buildings, making it more accessible to all with all abilities. We've changed our materials to make sure that they are low maintenance or minimum maintenance on the buildings as they constructed, and they come out looking beautiful like that at Mirror Lake State Park. On the bottom left is a new road, entrance road at the south entrance of Perot State Park. And that was a minor project. And on a small project at Richard Bong State Rec Area is an accessible pier to an urban pond for fishing. Again, open and accessible to all that visit that park. Some additional projects. I wanted to point out on the top left there is we talk about A priorities and keeping all of our amenities open. That is how Harrington Beach looked as we had high water levels on Lake Michigan. The shore was eroding, the road was partially closed and in jeopardy of complete failure. We came in with a priority A project, less than $500,000. We armored the shore there, added the new road, and protected that asset through that prioritization. All toilets up at Mirror Lake. Up in the right is a new fish station and renovation at Asylum Bay on Lake Winnebago. Talked about the importance of the sturgeon fishing season up there. That's a facility that supports all of that, and that's a new facility on the right and new paving around it. Beach wall restoration at Devils Lake State Park on the North Shore, very big, popular beach. That helped with erosion and controlling that earth from coming into the beach there. In addition of an accessible ramp at Kettle Moraine State Park, that ramp was a little steep and they added that ramp, cut that ramp into there to make it more accessible to all. And then constant trail redevelopment. This one is up at Kimberly Clark Wildlife Area. As I mentioned, we have a lot to go. Potawatomi Tower is currently under renovation. We hope to have that open soon. Up on the right is Stewart Tunnel on Badger State Trail. That's under design. That tunnel is at risk of collapsing. Obviously, lots of bridges and roads to fix beyond that. With that, do we have any questions?
Questions for Terry?
It's ambitious.
Bill. Oh,
Marcy, go ahead.
so in the prioritization, one of the things that has been noted is the signage and how there's always a constant need for updated signage, changing signage. What category does that fall in? Is that a maintenance issue or?
It's a rough one. And like all of the projects, we can always badger back and forth between an A and a B. But I'll take it this way. If there's a signage that is required by some kind of compliance, that the sign is required for a compliance issue, like the signage on a toilet shower building, and that's a priority A. If it's wayfinding through a park, typically we would prioritize that as a B.
Okay.
Other questions?
Oops.
Go ahead.
Was it last year or 2 years ago that we got the laundry list of backlog? All these years run together. How are we doing on catching up?
Not so successful. We did have a very large budget last time, and that budget was finally approved at $170 million. Of that 170 million, estimating 70 to 80 million of it went to backlog. Backlog is justified by all projects that we have that are in the A and B category. We don't consider backlog if it's in the C and D category. Currently, the projects that we have in are over $1 billion in the A and B categories. So we have a long way to go.
Gary, I have a question that's more specific to a certain program. We've seen public concerns raised and articles in the press about the funding level for our parks program. And one of the comments is that the parks program in Wisconsin, and I think they were referring to maybe fiscal or calendar year 2017, so it was a few years ago. But their concern was that we had the least amount of public funding supporting the parks program of any state in the union, any state in the country, which totally took me by surprise, and I found it shocking, just based on our reputation and the quality of the parks program that we've run. And we've been trying to pay for it with basically programmatic funds raised through fees within the program rather than a broader base of public funding. How are we doing with that?
I don't know if I can directly answer that, but we are not funded through other states the way other states are funded. We go through this process as part of the biennial budget process. I can't speak to that. I can speak to what is in front of me and on my desk. And what's in front of me and on my desk are these requests from the programs to maintain their properties at the levels that the public expect them to be maintained at. We're not necessarily expanding, growing those facilities. We're trying to maintain what we have, and that is the backlog that we have. So I think it shows our deficit in the way we're spending to maintain those amenities.
Well, I couple that, I guess, with the feedback we heard from you and others in terms of the impact on our facilities during the pandemic when there was just huge public interest and we were unable to staff it at a level. The facilities took a beating. I mean, they just, there was a lot of work that needed to be done to keep them up to standards. And I put those two and two together, and I just see the parks program as kind of a special case here in that they sustained an awful lot of public interest and public use, and yet the funding mechanisms don't seem to be there to sustain a program over the long haul. And I know your perspective is more on the capital side of that, the facility side of it, but are you seeing slippage in those facilities and our ability to maintain them and to keep them up to a quality that our visitors and our citizens demand?
Again, going through the prioritization of projects that we spend a lot of time doing. I think as I outlined there, we have $120 million of A priority projects alone. And A priority projects are, we are not sure if we can keep the amenity open unless we fund these projects. So the example I use all the time are bridges on trails. There are a lot of bridges that need work, and we cannot guarantee that bridge will be open for a season that will make us close down a trail. And you know how detrimental that is in some areas of the state for economic reasons. So that's just on the priority A. We're not even talking about the priority Bs yet that we want to get to, and that's the current backlog that we have. Maggie said it best. She goes, we want to address the Bs before they become As. And I couldn't say it any better. And
I have no criticism of your priorities. You're squeezing every bit you can out of the money we have and putting it towards the highest priority. My interest and my concern is more the longer term, bigger picture. Do we have a sustainable level of funding for a quality parks program? And you can't answer that, but it's a question that I'm going to continue to ask as we work through the budget. Other questions, Robin?
I'm wondering if you could share with us, when you put your numbers together, do you project contributions from friends groups or things like that in your costs, or is that your budget covers the full cost? And if you get support for doing some of these?
No, there's a lot of projects. If we get a commitment from a friends group, it is included in the budget. So some of the projects are the friends group will make a contribution as part of it, and that is in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
We'll see you for the update.
All right, appreciate
Gary.
it. Okay, next item on the agenda is item 7, Department Secretaries Matters. Stephen, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start off first with the retirement recognition. Mr. James C. Delwish, Environmental Management, 32 years. I request a motion to approve this recognition.
We have a motion to approve.
I would move to approve.
Robin moves approval. Do we have a second?
Second with the thanks.
Marcy seconds.
Thanks,
All those in
Elizabeth.
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Acknowledgement, recognition, approval follows.
Thank you very much. Next, acts of the Secretary. Number 1, real estate transactions. Are there any questions on the real estate transactions, given that we didn't have any this week?
Been fairly quiet.
Thank you. And then lastly, Secretary's Matters, just for the board, wanted you to be aware that next week on October 2nd, the department will be traveling up to Red Cliff for our annual tribal consultation. We'll be in Bayfield on October 2nd. And then secondly, Mr. Chair, I understand your question regarding the parks funding situation. I will raise that with Diane Brousseau, who's our administrator of Fish, Wildlife and Park, to see if we can provide you a briefing on that to answer your question. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Board members matters. Patty Shockner.
I have, since I've been on the board, wake boating has been such a huge issue. I just need clarity on the public trust doctrine, emergency orders, wake boating, and now the coagular mussels. Yeah, I mean, it's like, this issue doesn't seem to be getting better. It seems to be getting worse. And I just feel like I need to know much more about this here. We have wake boats up by us, but I never really think about, people going from county to county and all this here stuff, and this could be a big deal.
Any more, Patty?
Nope, that's
Thank
it.
you. Deb.
I would agree with Patty, as we keep having more people come and I even have people mention it to me when I'm out and about that are, living on lakes where, and dealing with this issue with the boats. So I would agree with more information and conversation that we could have, so that we're more informed and able to help make decisions. But I would also like to comment on, it was really a lot of fun as a proud UWSP graduate to be here in Stevens Point. Thank you for your work and the tour we had yesterday. It was a really generous learning experience from beginning to the end of our evening. And I really, Marcy, I really appreciated the issue of the Little Plover River, and you addressed that, Chair Smith. It was really gratifying to see what is normally a confrontational situation end up so well. So I really appreciated that. So I really appreciate that opportunity. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Robin?
Sure. So, ditto to the thanks for all the work that goes into putting these tours together. It's huge and, you know, it's meaningful. So I just hope folks recognize that as much work as it is, it's highly valuable and very appreciated, at least by me, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of all the board members. I also wanted to, mention that, recently I attended the Wisconsin Waterfowl Expo in Oshkosh. And I want to appreciate the invite from Bruce Ross and Reed Kavalowski, who are passionate about that expo and seeing the growth that it has seen from year to year, and the interest is phenomenal. They have an area that's really dedicated for women hunters and trying to expand growth in that area. A great area for hands-on activities for kids. They had decoy judging. They had, you know, so many opportunities for learning and being able to ask questions. I also want to say thanks to Connie Antonik, who's the Northeast Region Secretary Director, who I happened to meet in the parking lot. And so we were able to tag team together during that. And it was really helpful to have both of us be able to talk to different people and kind of share information and hear perspectives. So that was great. And most of all, oh my God, the puppies. I took pictures of every puppy I could and texted them to my husband until he blocked my phone. We still don't have a puppy, but it was great to see that. And the work that they're doing. So I highly encourage folks to think about going to that in the future. It was really educational, but fun as well. So I learned a lot. And lastly, we are starting the hunting season as I go home and awake to duck hunters shooting their guns in our area. It's the Mississippi Flyway is obviously a very sought after place to go duck hunting. And I just want to recognize the work of our conservation and law enforcement wardens and what they do to protect the hunters, to make sure that they're understanding the regulations and that it's a huge workload. And I'm grateful that you guys do what you do, and you're going to have it's a hard time for you guys coming up now. So thank you in advance. I hope that everybody has a very safe hunting season. And, you know, so just thanks from a law enforcement perspective.
Thank you, Robin. Marcy?
Okay, just to follow up on a couple items from today's agenda. First, the NR 320 and the structures and waterways. I'm not going to put you on the spot, Kyle, but I would request that network of organizations that participated are going to be key to the communications as that rule gets implemented. And so if we could have an update or just send us the communications that are going out for the public on whether it be the website, just remind us that it's on the website, or the communications through other organizations. I would really appreciate that, because it is a very complex rule. And I think, you know, everybody who lives on a lake or a water body wants to do the right thing, but they will need to know how, or what the changes have been. So that's one. Second, it was nice to see David Clutter today and the specifics on the Haven Woods project. I think it would be beneficial, especially having new board members, to get a overview of the relationship with the Natural Resources Foundation and specifically the Cherish Fund. Obviously, budget issues are a major concern, and partners like the Natural Resources Foundation will be key going forward to make sure that we can do as much as we can with the dollars available. And then finally, as a UWSP grad as well, Casey, we're covered. My appreciation for the tour yesterday as well. Mead was just, I was just blown away by Mead. But UWSP and that forestry technology has just really captured my interest. And, you know, if you go out for a fish fry and you get one of those foam clamshells with your leftovers, make sure you remember that there's technology in the works to modify those kind of things from beginning to end. And our forestry resources are so key. And so I appreciated that. I appreciated the education program. Project Learning Tree was, I was certified in Project Learning Tree all those years ago. So again, my appreciation, and likewise the Plover River, the partners that came together. I mean, we all remember the headlines of the Plover River year after year. So it was really nice to see that final result. So I add my appreciation to everybody who worked on that tour. It was excellent. Thank you.
It was stunning to see brook trout like this in their full fall colors coming out of that stream that had been dry as a bone a few years before. I mean, you couldn't paint a better picture. Fabulous. My specific interests have been covered by the thoughtful comments and remarks by everybody on the board or previously during the meeting. So I have nothing more under board members' matters, except a very big thank you to Jill and Dave and Sue Snyder and all the people you represent for hosting a very enjoyable and educational day in the field and a very productive meeting. Thank you very much. With that, I think our next item of business is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Patty moves adjournment. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Robin seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you. Safe travels.